Good evening, race fans, and welcome to TRTN for the coverage of the opening round, of a brand new championship courtesy of NLRL and Malois Transport. Welcome to the 2025 NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship by Malois Transport, an exciting new multi-class series to span the summer season on our way to Season 2 of the Console Endurance Series by the end of the year. As always, I am Regan Clark, and you join us from the historic Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, situated in Stavelot in the region of Wallonia, Belgium, and founded in 1921, Spa is the largest freestanding FIA Grade 1 circuit in existence, boasting a whopping 4.3 miles and 20 turns of tarmac. And to match a circuit of such grand design is a field of grand performance. Recognised drivers from all over Xbox have congregated to this season's grid, as well as many local heroes here on NLRL. Plenty to discuss as the season warms up. To outline some ground rules, though, coming into this brand new championship is a brand new set of regulations. First of which, tighter regulations on mid-season car swaps are in effect from here on out, and longer qualifying sessions, a whole hour to deal with today. 30 minutes dedicated to GT3, that's the opening 30, and the latter 30 being dedicated to our brand new category GT4. Longer racing lengths as well, up from 1 hour that we would normally experience in the Sunday League, and up to 2 with 2 mandatory pit stops, which the mandatory regulations on that is just fuel, not tyres, and 25 seconds minimum, and of course the elephant in the room, the introduction of GT4 regulations. As we have a look here with Hayden Prodger on his way down towards Blanchemont, whilst we have time then in what is an extensive 30-minute free practice session, which we have about 27 minutes left in to discuss, let's have a look around the newest editions of the paddock. Starting us off then is the SRO GT4 regulations, introduced in 2007 under the guise of creating a cheaper and closer to stock version of GT racing aimed at amateur racers, featuring far less augmentation than its GT3 counterparts. GT4 blurs the line between road-going cars and dedicated racing machines. This set of regulations has attracted plenty of manufacturers and engineering houses from around the world to come and try their hand at the big tables of Grand Touring. As we see here with Hayden Prodger, let's discuss the first of our cars here. Now, we've got quite a long-winded opening to play with here in GT for the start of the solo multi-class endurance. And let's discuss the first of our GT4s then, making its way onto the track as we watch with Hayden Prodger. Now, this is the KTM Crossbow GT4. It was introduced in 2015 as a racing alternative to KTM's track-focused Crossbow, introduced the year before. It was co-developed by KTM and Reiter Engineering in Graz, Austria, weighing only 1,100 kilos, a marvel of engineering there, somewhere half between a jet fighter and the Batmobile in appearance. The KTM Crossbow features a 2-litre Audi EA113 turbo inline-4 engine, the same one you'll find in the Audi S3 and Volkswagen Golf R. And even though it's a tiny engine, as a matter of fact the smallest engine in GT4, it will punch out 380 brake horsepower in a car that, as mentioned before, weighs only 1,100 kilos. It is remarkably lightweight. We'll be on to the discussion of balance of performance as it affects both GT3 and GT4. Getting a look around the field, though, is our next subject of discussion here, courtesy of two-time GT4 champion in TRC, Christian Lebay, behind the wheel of the 119 Chevrolet Camaro. The 6th generation Camaro you see on screen here was introduced in 2017, developed by General Motors at their Lansing, Michigan facility. It was then handed over to the boffins at Pratt Miller Engineering, the same company that gave us the Corvette C6R, C7R and C8R endurance racing machines. Now, unlike the visual appearance of this car would have you suggest, it does not feature the same engine as a ZL1. That would be the LT4 6.2-litre supercharged V8 engine. SRO GT4 regulations strictly forbid the use of superchargers, so the engineers at Pratt Miller had to get creative and searched around the brochure until they landed on the LT1, the engine from the Camaro SS. It is almost exactly the same as an LT4 minus the supercharger. Despite that loss of forced induction, they were still able to squeeze 480 whopping brake horsepower from this very engine, and it makes one hell of a racket. The 6th generation Camaro is an almost universal figure in the world of sports car racing, competing not only here in SRO GT4 but also competing in the Australian Supercars Championship as well as in the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series as a body-on-frame design. There'll be plenty to discuss as we hit qualifying, as it looks like KTM and Chevrolet are to be some of the most competitive manufacturers in play, with also some surprise appearances from Mercedes. We'll also see another one of the Chevrolets here, courtesy of the Malois racing team. We were just on board with Christian Lebain. Now we see from the perspective here of the number 22, John Prine, making his way down the Kemmel Straight. Now the Malois racing team have opted for an almost entirely Chevrolet lineup, and I think this coincides with their affinity up in GT3 when they signed Axel Cassier for the 7th generation Ford Mustang. They really do seem to like these fast and loose designs from the United States, and really, it's not hard to see why. It is one impressive looking machine, a very, very handsome car indeed. Having a look around the field, we can see the very same, as a matter of fact, 7th generation Mustang. As you can see, passing Dimitri Snai, that's Cas van Veltzen. We'll be on to the discussion of our GT3 grid after we make our way through the titular GT4s. And speaking of Dimitri Snai, let's get on board to the next study of the day as we pass by some of the Mercedes and BMWs here to discuss the dark horse of this championship, Ginetta. Now, the Ginetta G55 never originally was designed to compete in GT4. It was a single-make cup racer developed by Ginetta Motors in Leeds I believe it's North Yorkshire, is it not? Having a look here, West Yorkshire, as a matter of fact. And it was introduced, the oldest car in GT4, as a matter of fact, in 2011. It's the oldest one in circulation here on ACC. It features a 3.7-litre naturally aspirated Ford Cyclone V6 engine, making 385 horsepower. And, get this, it weighs 1,085 kilos, making it the lightest car in GT4. It is an absolute juggernaut in the corners, but its short ratio gearbox leaves much to be desired down the straight. So, from here to Blanchimont, or from Eau Rouge to Le Common Melmedy, Dimitri Snai and many like him in Ginetta could find a myriad of trouble on the way. Having a look around the field, of course, we discussed KTM. If we go back to discuss some of the other cars in GT4, we land at BMW. We're watching here with James Mason, who is a veteran of BMW now here in NLRL, making his way down to GT4, still with the M4, but the previous generation model from the one we're used to seeing up in GT3. Now, the M4 GT4 was produced in-house by BMW M Sport in 2017, featuring a 3-litre BMW S55 twin-turbo inline-six, making 425 horsepower. This car is pretty close to what you can buy off of the showroom floor. As a matter of fact, the M4 CS mirrors this by being a more track-focused version that blurs the line between a standard road-going car and the GT4 M4 you see on your screen right now. We want to get a look at the other German car in play as we take a look across here. Roman Stanov in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. We quickly check in here. Makes his way down through Rivaz, sometimes also called Bruxelles, and vice versa at turn 10. Now, the Mercedes-AMG GT4 was introduced from our notes here in 2017, developed in-house by AMG in Sindelfingen, Germany, featuring a 4-litre Mercedes M178 twin-turbo V8 engine, making 430 brake horsepower. We also see TG in chat saying the Ginetta is a bit heavier in ACC, in and around the 1,200 kilo mark. Now, that would probably explain how it's faltering behind so much there. But with the two drivers in play at the moment for Ginetta, it's looking very, very strong. Back on to the discussion of Mercedes, though. This, of course, features the M178. Now, the sister car to the AMG, the Aston Martin Vantage, features the export version of this engine, the M177, which Aston Martin rumour can make up to 469 horsepower, subject to balance of performance. I imagine, then, it's the same story here for Stanov's Mercedes. See there, Toby Cyril was in the pits with BMW. Speaking of BMW, James Mason, third fastest in class there for GT4 as he gets across the line. Obviously, we're about 20 minutes out from the discussion of qualifying. We will be talking about balance of performance, though, once we've made our way around the grid. I don't believe we're in the present... Oh, no, we are in the present company of one of our other GT4s there. We just quickly see one of the GT3s, Ismail Rashidov, making his way out of the pit lane in number 21. We wanted to discuss here, hiding away in the paddock, is our solitary McLaren of this championship, the McLaren 570S GT4, being driven by Claudio Cisternas, number 55, was introduced in 2016, developed in-house by McLaren's Motorsports division, featuring a 3.8-litre M838TE TT V8, a twin-turbo model, making 413 horsepower, which is a considerable downtune from the road-going model's 562. And on to the discussion of balance of performance in a moment's time. Cisternas isn't going to be a particularly happy customer to be choosing McLaren this time around. Check in here, speaking of McLaren, Ilkay killing Coglu's in this championship here. One of 9 cars, as a matter of fact, in GT3 for the opening round of the championship. we'll be on to the discussion of qualifying, as it's looking very, very hopeful for this one in particular. See here with David Silf making his way down the Kemmel Straight with Mercedes. Behind him, John Prine. Jake Garrett as well will be racing for Mercedes this season. What a livery that is there on the 116. There's Wesley Kuiper. Industry heavy hitter here in NLRL, now makes his way down towards GT4. Looking to give very good competition to Lebay and Proger. We see as well, though, Roman Zhdanov in our data was showing to be a very, very promising signing. The number 83 Mercedes looking to punch up towards the front row in qualifying later on today. We'll be more into the discussion of that later on. We're checking now with our GT3 crowd. Of course, we've got the resident regular vehicles from BMW and Ford and McLaren. Though I will note as well, having a look around the field, is a remarkably slim number of Ferraris, and that is a bit of a pale comparison to what we saw in some of the other championships here on NLRL. We take a look through the muscle car crowd. We can see Ford and Chevrolet. That's Cas van Veltzen making his way out. We wanted to get the discussion then in GT3 of one of its most interesting changes. That comes from Lexus, courtesy of the number 835 of Tyler Vermaak. Now ahead of his official start of the season with Aston Martin, he announced he would be moving over to Lexus. Now, the reasons for this are vague at best for the time being, but we have a sneaking suspicion it may have been conversation between himself and the Season 2 Sunday League champion Jason Bush, best known for his use of the RCF, and now that legacy of competition here in NLRL carries on, with Vermaak setting currently the fastest time in free practice in the Lexus RCF. It is a monstrously fast machine, 5.4 litre V8 engine there. Absolute brute down the back straights. He had a talk with us the other day on what was such a dividing factor between this and the Aston. The thing he loves the most about this, you get the foot down, there's no lag because it's a naturally aspirated engine. It just absolutely clocks it out of every single corner. The Aston takes maybe half a second to a second to wind up in some instances. This, he says, just feels like instantaneous power transmission by comparison. Seems to be a lot more in tune with that RCF. See Wishful Winnings there in chat. Best known for his tenure in VSR Phoenix. Will be joining us in the chat for this round of the championship. Very warm welcome to you. And with about 16.5 minutes left in free practice, it is going to shape up to be a very interesting season indeed. The first time in NLRL's history that we've seen multiple categories on the field here. We just quickly check in with one such interaction. You can see Alan Alexander's up the road there, and the number 26 Ginetta. Right behind him is the man on screen, Mir Ismail Rashidov with Porsche. Number 21 having a little bit of trouble there over Arujan Radion. You can see it was a bit of a desync sliding around the track, but he's a mighty set of colours. Of course, he is one of several drivers to be tuning in from MSA Racing. On his way down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. Yes, you heard that correctly, Wishful. First time for NLRL to run multi-class. Now, I believe GHR may have ran this before us, but in terms of the brand new ownership and tenure of NLRL, this is the first we've seen of it, and it's the first time in a long, long time here on TRTN that we've seen GT4s on the grid. Having a look into the paddock there, you can see it's aloof with GT3s, and one GT4 just sneaking up the road there. That's the 111 of Wesley Kuiper at the top of your screens. Just in front of them then, Tyler Vermaak, Ben Cole making his way out in the older 2015 Mercedes. We see here Nolan Cabriso in the number 30, well, not making his way out yet, but just buying his time. Checking in then, this is Ilkay Kilinkoglu, racing for McLaren in this championship. Of course, we've best seen him through his exploits with MSA during the Console Endurance Series. This acting as a bit of an offshoot season between Season 1 and Season 2 is going to give us a blast of summer fun. And speaking of summer fun, let's get a look at the calendar very quickly as we see Kilinkoglu make his way out of Bruxelles down towards the no-name corner at turn 11. So on to the discussion of the calendar for this season. Of course, we start things off here in Spa-Francorchamps. We just load up the rest of my calendar here for you to see, as this was preemptively made before dates could have been confirmed. Right now, of course, June 7th, 2025 is the opening round. June 21st will be the second round at Mount Panorama. Thoroughly looking forward to that indeed. And having a look at the calendar for the rest of the season for the solo multi-class endurance, July 5th will be round 3 at Imola, with July 19th being round 4 at Misano. A double Italian round then for rounds 3 and 4 of the championship. At the halfway mark will be at Zolder for round 5 on August 2nd. August 16th then gives rise to round 6 at Zandvoort. August 30th brings us to the end of August for round 7 at the Nürburgring GP circuit. And for the last 3 rounds of the championship, we're into September and October, I should say. September 6th for round 8 at Suzuka, September 20th for Hungaroring at round 9, and October 4th for Indianapolis at the season finale. Still checking in then with Ilkay Kilinkoglu. And to remind you of the regulations for new viewers joining us today, the new regs for this season, longer qualifying sessions on the horizon. We're about 13 minutes out from the start of GT3 qualifying. That will be immediately joined by GT4 qualifying to make an entire hour of qualifying hot laps here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Longer races as well, 2 hours against the clock here with 2 mandatory pit stops to only entail refueling, as the mandates no mandate for tyres, leaving open strategy for tyre compounds heading into this season. And I must say, it is a remarkable sight indeed. Right now, we're in and around 21 cars on the field from a myriad of categories. Ben Cheeseman then, alongside Ben Cole, will stay on board with these two on their way down through La Source to try and get a tour here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, where normally turn 1 would be if you were to start the Belgian Grand Prix. We, as a matter of fact, start down here past turn 1 and out through the kink at turn 2 on our way to Eau Rouge and Radion. Stay on board with Cheeseman. Up through Eau Rouge and Radion, turns 3 through 5, then through the slight right-hand kink at turn 6 to bring us down the Kemmel Straight. You can see the night and day difference in straight line speed between GT4 and GT3 there. James Mason left out in the cold, just waves Cheeseman on by. On his way down towards Lacombe and Melmody, turns 7, 8 and 9 here. Already proven to be a bit of a challenge for GT3 in terms of stability. We've seen in the sessions leading up to today's practice and qualifying that the GT4s are no stranger to a bit of instability problems. Now on our way down through turn 10 at Bruxelles. It's going to make for a very, very interesting opening round indeed. Plenty of anticipation weighs heavy in the air here on this grid. A lot of hope, a lot of optimism. We'll see exactly where things land at the end of this upcoming 2-hour race. But before that, we've got an hour of qualifying coming up in 11.5 minutes. So now on our way through Pouhon, turn 12, what can be taken flat out by Formula 1 cars. Our drivers do have to lift just a tad here on their way down towards turn 13 and 14 at Campus. You can see Roman Zhdanov there, just slightly in the way of Cheeseman. It's knocking some of his time away there on the exit of turn 14. Now down towards Stavolo at turn 15. He's still in the wake of the Ukrainian there in the number 83. And now to turn 16. He manages to get past Zhdanov there through the curb of Paul Frere. We've seen plenty of drivers invalidate through this section of the track. Very understeer heavy for GT4. We'll see how that adds up, though. It's going to be a very, very interesting day to behold. On our way up through turn 17, then to turn 18 at Blanchemont. Ultra fast section of the track here for our drivers. But for Cheeseman, he's down 0.8 of a second over his personal best. It still leaves him 5th in category and 5th overall into the bus stop chicane at turns 19 and 20. To take it to the line then, Cheeseman crosses the line without an improvement. So we'll cut away from him for a moment here as we continue to take a look around the field. You see David Silf, currently 9th in category, 16th overall, on his way down towards Stavolo. You see a little bit of a sort of desync as it appears there. Very difficult to notice unless you know what you're looking for. He's sort of almost sliding around the track. Jake Garrett on his way through Blanchemont down to the bus stop chicane. Right behind him, that's Ismail Rashidov, number 21 with Porsche. On his way to line then. You're going to see the difference in acceleration. He's signalling to the right, I think just after his lap there. He gets on the brakes, lets Rashidov get him by. We're really hoping to see a comparison here. Here's Wesley Kuiper down the Kemmel. Currently leading the GT4 class then with a time of 2:29.730 here in free practice. 9.5 minutes left to go before qualifying. It's going to be spicy. You see there stopped to the side of the road. Appears to be Kevin Quain, one of the Malois Racing Chevrolets. Stopped on the runoff zone through turn 7. It's back on track now. Up the road from Kuiper is Cole, Mason and Kieran Rodd, the number 61 Mustang. Alan Alexander, you can see making his way around curb with Paul Frere. In front of him, fellow Ginetta Dimitri Snai, number 57. And I must say, it is really a pleasure to see the Ginettas finally take to the tarmac here. There was the idea floated when I was first signed on to K1 Esports and by proxy NLRL of the Ginetta Cup becoming a series. We even ran advertisements for it in previous series. And sadly, that never came to fruition, but I think in light of that, just to see the G55s compete on the grid is a reward enough, I think. Because they are an absolute riot to drive. You'll note as well, if we get on board with Alan Alexander, as a matter of fact, this is probably the best angle to show off the point I'm trying to make. Looking in that Ginetta, it is the only car on this grid right now in circulation to be right-hand drive. Now, this owes to its heritage as a dedicated cup racer. It was never designed to go and compete in GT4. It ended up finding its way into that nonetheless, and obviously Ginetta, not wanting to compromise on their design, kept the car right-hand drive. Now, for some drivers this can be a bit of a polarising experience, considering a good 80 to 90% of race cars nowadays are left-hand drive if they're not single-seaters. So to suddenly swap over to right-hand drive is a very, very rare occasion indeed. So for Alan Alexander, of course, native Brit, may find this a little bit more comfortable. I've noticed the bulk of the GT3 drivers up until this championship were from the United Kingdom. We've got one such exception right in front, Dimitri Snai, racing from Ukraine, the number 57. Brakes were really quite a contentious issue there for Alexander on his way down through Lacombe and Melmedy. Big lockup. Big lockup for these drivers. Of course, factory weight's 1,085, so we're told that's upwards now towards 1.2 metric tons. That could be the same story then for the other featherweight in this championship, the KTM Crossbow, being driven by Hayden Prodger. But still being that lightweight could definitely, no pun intended, weigh quite heavy on these two coming into this race. Just because with obviously lightweight comes slightly less stability. The car's a lot lighter, it's a lot more responsive. It can be a little less stable. I mean, all you really need to do is take a look at a difference between, say, truck racing and Caterham sprints. It's obviously, it's a bit of an extreme demonstration of that philosophy, but these are considerably lightweight, even for their own category. You can see they're very skittish as they accelerate out of the corners. They've got very short ratio transmission. Like I mentioned, it's going to be fantastic for acceleration, but very poor for straight line speed. See here, the fellow GT4, Dimitri Snai, on his way through Blanchimont, down towards the bus stop chicane. It's just an absolute racket there from those 3.7 litre V6s. Very, very mighty sound indeed. It's like a swarm of angry hornets on its way out of the bus stop chicane there. Turn 20 to the line. There's Dimitri Snai. Last lap, a 2:31.305. On board with another featherweight in the GT4 category, and the one we discussed at the very start. We're back on with Hayden Prodger here towards the end of free practice. Second in class at the moment behind Kuiper. On his way out of the bus stop chicane. On an outlap, so it appears. We'll stay on board with Prodger then on his next run around the track. Yeah, that was not subtle whatsoever. I cracked that can so it goes straight into the red on the mic limiter. Plenty to pick apart then. And to discuss whilst we watch with Prodger, let's discuss these scoring charts as according to SimGrid at the moment. For first place is an award of 38 points, for second place is 27, for third place is 23, for fourth place is 18, for fifth place is 15, for sixth place is 12, I should say. For seventh place is 9 points, for eighth place is 6 points, for ninth place is 3 points, and for 10th place is 2 points. There's a real tongue twister, surprisingly so. For anything behind 11th place then is 0. A very strict scoring model then, that carries across both categories. GT3 and GT4 will be scored the same, contributing to 2 different championships by the end of this season. Who will win then the GT3 and GT4 championships? Well, it's up for the first qualifying session to decide that. And before we get on to that, we stay on board with Hayden Prodger as we quickly discuss, before we get on to quali, the balance of performance for round 1 of the championship. Now, starting us off with the GT4s on screen, you can see that KTM lose the most amount of weight coming into this race, 25 kilos lost. And that's 2 up from Aston Martin. Now, if Michael Rushton were to have shown to this race, sadly won't be about because he's competing in the N24 on iRacing with K1 Esports at the moment, he would have seen 23 kilos off of his Aston Martin. Almost the entirety of the Malois racing team is going to see delight this round with 16 kilos shed off of the Camaro GT4R, BMW losing 13 kilos, Mercedes and Ginetta staying net neutral, and McLaren lucking out as the only manufacturer to gain weight coming into this race. For GT3's balance of performance, Mercedes lose a record 40 kilos on that 2015 AMG GT3. Ben Cole will be ecstatic with that news. Lexus RCF loses 16 kilos for Tyler Vermack. That's fantastic news as well. And then it seems to be a broadly different story to what we saw in GT4, with primarily gains in weight rather than losses, with Porsche gaining 1, BMW gaining 3, Ferrari gaining 4, both Nissan and McLaren gaining 6, and Ford gaining a whopping 20 kilos. It's not going to be particularly easy for the Blue Oval to secure success in the opening round here in Spa. However, it is going to be almost clockwork for KTM and Mercedes in the GT4 category. See there. 2 worlds collide. Toby Cyril right behind Hayden Prodger. You can see the difference in performance there. 2 litre versus 4. An engine twice its size there. That inline 6 really punching out the big numbers there. North of 520 brake in GT3 I should say. The little GT4 making only about 380. You've got to hand it to KTM, though. It's ingenuity at its finest. They took an engine that you would normally find in the Audi S3, in the Volkswagen Golf R, the Skoda Octavia RS, and they've turned it into quite the trooper behind the cockpit and under the rear bonnet of the KTM Crossbow. It's a remarkable little machine indeed. Having a look around the field there, Christian Lebay currently 4th in class, 11th overall there with Chevrolet towards the end of free practice. Getting a look in then with some of our GT3s to take us to the end of the session. This is the number 61 of Kieran Rodd. You might know him better by the Blue Frog in VSR Phoenix. And shows the iconic Blue 61 this time around, chasing Kyle Jenkins on his way down through Stavelot Corner at turn 15. A big slide there by the Mustang. Great flourish towards the end of this session. Sadly, it doesn't appear to be gaining any more time in the session before qualifying starts. We watch on his way down towards Blanchimont. Sadly, that won't be an improvement, but with a minute left to go, he's got one more opportunity to nail in times here before the start of qualifying. Now, of course, the GT3 cars will occupy the first 30 minutes of qualifying today, then the GT4s will take over at the halfway mark. We're not entirely sure what the overlap period is, but we imagine it's going to be like with other leagues that have ran multi-class qualifying sessions before. I'd say that leeway is in and around 5 minutes there before penalties. We see here Tyler Vermack with Lexus on his way down through turn 15. Bouncing between a deficit and improvement, but I believe that time might be a little bit incorrect. I don't think it's took him 5.5 minutes to get around the track. Nearly 6 as a matter of fact. Towards the end of not qualifying, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Towards the end of free practice then, Vermack will be gunning for pole position. We'll be on to the discussion of our GT3 qualifying predictions, followed then by our GT4 qualifying predictions, all of course provided by Simbot. As we get towards the end of free practice here, it does look to be an improvement for Vermack as he gets to the line. We'll actually see his proper time roll in, a 2:17.585, second in class then at the end of free practice. And whilst we've got just a moment here before the end of free practice, let's quickly catch on board with the 61 and 113, just making their way through turn 12 as we speak. Kieran Rodd and Kyle Jenkins. We'd like to remind you here on TRTN that this wouldn't be possible to bring to you these broadcasts without the support of our sponsors at Malois Transport Incorporated, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. If you or someone you know are located in Canada and looking for an efficient and professional transportation brokerage service for your business, visit their website on www.malois-transport.ca. That's www.malois-transport.ca. It wouldn't be possible to bring you these performances week in, week out without the support of Malois Transport and as the title sponsors of the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. So we're back on board with Kieran Rod right before the start of GT3 qualifying. 30 minutes then for our GT3 cars and then 30 minutes for the GT4s before we're on to the first of our 2-hour races this season. It's going to be a very exciting one here in Spa. Let's see how things pan out. To the line then goes Kieran Rod to what looked like very nearly an improvement in the number 61 Mustang. He misses out by a tenth of a second there to the line. There to the line, Kieran Rod, Kyle Jenkins, 7th and 6th. Jenkins getting him on the last lap of free practice to get 6th fastest there. Bit of a rub in there, bit of a rubbing salt in the wounds for Kieran Rod. He was very, very close to an improvement there on the end of that last lap gone. Quickly catching on board with the last of our cars to the line then. We can catch them just in the nick of time. The number 222 of Hayden Prodger in the KTM Crossbow, currently second in class on his way out through turns 19 and 20. Doesn't look to be an improvement, sadly, though, for the Brit. And he'll have to wait all of 30 minutes before he can get back out on track as we head into the start of GT3 qualifying. 30 minutes against the clock then. The GT3s will be the first onto the field. Let's get on board then with the car first into the fray. Now, we were taking bets here in the paddock to see if anyone would mess this up. Let's see if we are proven wrong or not. No, as a matter of fact, first two drivers out of the fray, Ben Cole and Killing Koglu. Let's get on board then with the leading McLaren. And on to the discussion then of our qualifying predictions for GT3. It's a Killing Koglu on pole with the 2:16.580. That's by looking at it here, only about not even that, as a matter of fact, just actually just over 3 tenths and 5 thousandths of a second. We're still hooked on the GT4 qualifying. Honestly, wait until you see that. It was incredibly close. Now, the reason why our predictions are a little bit shorter than we're normally expected to see in them, A, is because of server attendance. We've been wrestling with G-Portal over the course of the last couple of weeks to make sure this actually works this time. And it's also been a case where Simbot was shut down last night. We had an outage last night and we just haven't got it back up whilst the rest of the staff handling servers have been racing in the N24, because actually one of them is in chat right now. So, into the discussion of GT3 qualifying. Of course, Killing Koglu on pole. Vermac with Lexus looks to be eyeing up pole from about 3 tenths away there. He's second with a 2:16.885. Cas van Veltzen not too far away from him either, makes a 2:17.977. Then in 4th place, Til Schvering, the 2:18.335. Ben Cheeseman, 5th, the 2:18.642, 400ths away from him. Kyle Jenkins with a 2:18.682. Then rounding out our times is a bit of a erroneous time by Ben Cole. We're not sure how accurate that is, a 2:30.963. Now, read that correctly, that would actually put him down in GT4. We stay on board, though, with Ilkay Killing Koglu for the first of our flying laps then. Really leave it to a talent such as a Killing Koglu to show us around this track. And my dog is kicked off at the worst possible time for me to be simmering down and letting you listen to the McLaren. We'll return to you in a moment's time. So down the Kemmel straight then. We know the McLaren is at least amicable for straight line speed. Now in our test that we ran in the Sunday League, we saw it was actually among the slowest cars, 170 miles per hour. But at a track like the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, you're going to be matching sort of dead centre for setups here. Not too low, not too high for the aero, because this track is one of the many great testing circuits out there. It's very, very well balanced, as a matter of fact. That opening sector, of course, would heavily benefit low aero, but then you get into this more technical and corner intensive middle sector where aero is really going to be the deciding factor, not only for the times in qualifying but for one's own race. For Koglu, though, we've seen he's the master of setups with MSA, and he's seen plenty of success over his tenure with MSA during the Console Endurance Series. He is a very remarkably fast driver then. On his way down towards turn 13 and 14, Campus. So checking on our timing charts now, Koglu, of course, will be first to the line. You can see just the breadth of this grid at the moment from GT3 to GT4 alike. Koglu will be the first to set his times here on the chart. Following in his wake will be the number 7, the number 835 and the number 420. Leaving times yet to be adjusted for Toby Cyril, Tyler Vermaak and Cas van Velzen. The number 114 would be the next after that, just making their way out of turn 14. But let's see what Koglu does across the line on his first flying lap at 2:17.027 already. Remarkable stuff. Let's see what Toby Cyril can do as he gets to the line here with BMW. Down across the line he goes, off by 5 thousandths of a second there. Next to the line, Tyler Vermaak with Lexus. Not too far away from him would be Cas van Velzen. Vermaak provisional third. Van Velzen to the line next. We catch him just as he heads across the line and takes third off of Vermaak by only a few hundredths of a second there. Very, very close. And must I say, as well, with Cas van Velzen's choice of design for that Mustang, very Braun GP-esque. It's a very pretty livery indeed on the number 420. The number 114 then next to the line, Ben Cheeseman. Where does he place on the charts then? As he crosses the line, doesn't appear to set a valid lap. So it'll be one more onto the fray then, but plenty of time to play with. 24 minutes and a half still left to play with. Next to the line, number 61. We'll catch on board with Kieran Rod. Behind him it is Mir Ismail Rashidov. Rod then across the line. Also doesn't set a time, but Rashidov does for 5th fastest there in the number 21 Porsche. Next to the line, number 113. That's Kyle Jenkins on his way to the bus stop chicane with McLaren. There goes the number 113 from 22nd. Crosses the line, but also looks to be invalidated. So a bit of confusion there on the starting couple of laps. The number 878 is next to the line, but it looks to be already invalidated for Ben Cole in what I must say is a very rare sight indeed. That is the 2015 Mercedes AMG. We also just saw there Nolan Cabriso cross the line stealthily in the number 30 to take the 6th fastest time. Let's quickly see what Ben Cole can do. As he gets to the line there, don't believe it will be valid. It was already blue before he got to the line. A little bit of a disconnect problem for him there, but he gets across the line from 15th. Sadly, does not set a time and, oh, vanishes. That's unfortunate. So, next is the number 35. We try and go and find on board with them at this time. That's, of course, Ilkay Koglu, still leading this session, but by a very minuscule 5 thousandths of a second to Toby Cyril in the number 7. The number 35 then next to the line. Can he forge an improvement into the 216s? It's not too far to make that possible. And across the line, yes, he does, and by nearly 3/10 of a second. What's the rebuttal by Toby Cyril? In the number 7, he has to make 2/10 there for pole position. Crosses the line, doesn't appear to have got that one in the bag at all. Number 835 next to the line, trying to take third back off of Cas van Velzen. It's Tyler Vermaak. Doesn't find an improvement. Does Van Velzen, though, up to second. Possibly as he gets to the line here, needs to find 4/10 of a second. Doesn't find that. So a bit of frustration after those first couple of laps for our drivers in GT3. Next to the line, the number 114, Ben Cheeseman, appears to be invalidated, but we'll see him across the line to see if that is necessarily the truth. Sometimes ACC can be a little bit deceptive in what it does and doesn't invalidate. Next to the line then goes the 114, currently 18th. Gets across the line, so it was actually a valid time. Puts himself ahead of Cabriso, puts him up to 6th position. 61 then next to the line, Kieran Rod in the blue Mustang. Still chasing him down, number 21, Mir Ismail Rashidov. Kieran Rod to the line then from 21st. Where does he rank in GT3? 8th there. Provisionally at the back of the grid. Rashidov to the line. 5th fastest in the number 21. 113 next to the line. That's Kyle Jenkins again. Missed out last time. Does he miss out this time? Round turn 20 at the bus stop chicane. Still just under 22 minutes left to go in GT3 qualifying before we let loose the dogs of war that is the GT4 pack. Jenkins there up to 8th, puts himself about 6 tenths there ahead of Kieran Rodd's time in the 61. The only driver we've yet to see times for then is Ben Cole, number 878, the last of our GTs, or GT3s I should say. Get all too complicit in saying that, as if I've never seen another GT car before. You see, it is actually a slightly larger grid, actually considerably larger now that I look at it on this scale, of GT4s. Now, I'm not arguing. If you've ever seen a GT4 race, they maul each other, and that's exactly what I'm expecting to see today. Respectfully mauling each other, should point that out. So right now, the standing order, okay, Killinkoglu crosses the line, doesn't forge an improvement this time around, but can Toby Cyril clear 2 tenths of a second to make pole position across the line? He does clear 1 tenth, but just not close enough this time around. Number 420 is next up to the line. Cas van Veltsen, I must say, has had a blinder so far in qualifying. 10 minutes in, and he is really, really soaring in that number 420. He's starting to put the burners on to get himself further up towards the front row there. Sadly, doesn't find an improvement on that last lap, but does the 114, which is the next car to our line here. Ben Cheeseman. Very late on the brakes there for the 114. And again, that looked like a partial disconnect there, but he crosses the line. He's still 6th fastest. A little bit strange then. We're having a few blips here and there. Number 61's next to the line. Kieran Rodd gunning for an improvement. Can he manage to do one here in the last corners of Spa? Gets very friendly there with the sausage curb on the inside at turn 20. Number 61 to the line from 9th position. Has to find 6 tenths to get a position up. Very nearly does it. We quickly see here Rashidov up to 3rd fastest. Now that is impressive stuff by the solitary Porsche on this grid at the moment. Well, actually, no, there's 2 Porsches. That's my mistake there. My mistake to Nolan Cabrisso, 7th place. One of the only Porsches in this session then. Remarkably fast, though. We didn't have him gunned on our prediction charts to even be on the data there, but appearing from thin air, Mir Ismail Rashidov is really taking competition by storm there. He's pushed Van Veltsen down to the back of that 2nd row, and he's really doing a great service for Porsche. You've got to grant him that. Out through turn 6, he is on very, very good form here as we get towards the second half of this particular qualifying session, onto the second half of qualifying overall. Daunting on the horizon there by about 19 minutes out. So we'll get back on board with the actual onboard views here. We see Ilkay Killinkoglu bouncing between an improvement and deficit. We'll quickly stay on board with him on his way through Blanchemont. You can see it is so fine. The margins there for an improvement. He's very late on the brakes there, down into turn 19 and 20. He could be looking at a potential 10th of a second here. He's going to take a lightning send out of turn 20 to make that possible. He is gunning for an improvement, and a 2:16.780 is his new fastest time then. Very, very fast indeed by Ilkay Killinkoglu. Very well done on that lap just gone. Quickly catch on board here with the number 7, Toby Cyril with BMW. Down to the line he goes. Can he find the improvement necessary? Not this time around. He did a 2:25.435, something clearly awry with that BMW in that last lap. Cas van Veltsen just crossed the line for a 2:17.4. Not enough to push himself ahead of Mir Ismail Rashidov. Quickly catch back on board again. It seems a tale as old as time now, really, is catching back up with Ben Cheeseman to see where his progress is at. Right now, though, you can see he's down by about 9 tenths of a second, so it doesn't look to be an improvement for the 114. We go looking around the field yet again. The number 113 is just making his way down through Campus and Stavolo. See there, Jenkins narrowly misses out on an invalidation, but he is now down on his time as he makes his way through turn 16. So we'll catch up with him later on in the session. We want to try and catch on board with the driver we haven't spoke much about here. We've got the number 878, Ben Cole's really struggling for time at the moment. He's 16 seconds down. Let's go on board then with one of the other Porsches in this championship, Nolan Cabrisso in the number 30. He's up by about 3, nearly 4 tenths of a second there. It's remarkable progress by Porsche. You can see the real pull through this time around by Mir Ismail Rashidov and Nolan Cabrisso, this sort of dynamic duo of Porsches. Sadly, were it not for that invalidation, this would have still been a very solid lap out of him. you can definitely see that this balance of performance package is giving them just enough to play with here. Now, it may not be necessarily weight reduction, but it's been such a negligible difference for Porsche's overall performance that it's slowly bringing them further in line with the rest of their compatriots in GT3. Looking around the field then, Killinkoglu rests in the pit lane. The 878 and number 30 we were watching on with momentarily there are now just across the line. We're going to catch on board with the number 7. Toby Cyril has been gunning for pole position all session long, and that gap is only going to continue to open here. The BMW, he's trying to extract oh so much performance out of it. But you can see, we just closed that second window, that gap still sitting over 1/10 of a second. It's very, very close. It's at arm's length, but it's just too far away for him. He needs to find an absolute blinder by the end of this lap here as he gets down towards the line. He's actually 2 temps up, so it could be pole position. He's going to have a really good send, but you see it all comes apart there just on the exit of turn 20. If he's able to absolutely nail it in after the bus stop chicane, that's the only thing keeping Cyril away from pole at the moment. The McLaren seems to have him pitched in for acceleration. That's one of its key characteristics in GT in this game at the moment, is the fact that he has just got properly good shove. And BMW, great as it is, seems to be more of a straight line car when it comes to its engine mapping at the moment. For Toby Cyril, it's reluctantly still holding on to P2 in class. We'll catch up with him towards the end of GT3 qualifying. Next to the line, just quickly catch them there, is the 114 Ben Cheeseman in 6th at the moment. Last lap was a 2:17.799, so slowly making those improvements in GT3. He's 6th overall and 6th in class there of 10 cars in competition for this round of the championship. We'll catch on board then with the number 420, as a matter of fact. We want to try and get a little bit more of the lap in. We will be tracking Kyle Jenkins's progress from the other side of the track there. He's on our heads-up display there on the bottom left-hand side of your screens, the 113. Right now, though, we're watching on with Ford's Cas van Veltzen on his way out through turn 10. Jenkins sadly didn't find an improvement on that last lap, so we'll stay on board with Van Veltzen on his way down through turn 12. 14.5 minutes left to go then in GT3 qualifying before the GT4s get to come out and play. And that is going to be a very, very lively qualifying performance. Make no mistake of that. Van Veltzen, though, throwing the towel in over just halfway through the lap. Seeing here, this looks to be an outlap from Kieran Rodd, but a very sprightly one indeed. You can see he's wasting absolutely no time. As a matter of fact, as we're seeing, he's next to the line here. Let's stay on board with Kieran Rodd for the next coming lap of qualifying here, just to give you a perspective of some of the speed on display by Ford here in GT3. Pound for pound, one of the fastest cars down that back straight. I think Lexus has them pitched by maybe about 1 or 2 miles an hour up in the hands of Tyler Vermaak. As a matter of fact, we will try and catch on board with him as he's out of Melmedy. Right now, though, we're on with Kieran Rodd as he makes his way out of Blanchimont down to the bus stop chicane, turns 19 and 20 to start another flying lap. Let's get on board then with the dashcam view of the 61. Now, pay very little mind to the overall time there, as it's clearly clocked over from his last lap just gone. It actually was an improvement on that last lap, so we didn't even realise this wasn't an outlap for him. That was a 2:19.140. He's still 9th in class, though. So Kieran Rodd still a little bit begrudged here in GT3 qualifying. Down the Kemmel straight he goes. That thunderous 5.4 litre Ford M Sport V8. Believe me, we'll be in no short supply for V8 goodness coming into the GT4 qualifying, courtesy of the 6.2 litres in the Chevrolets from the Malois racing team. That is going to be quite the treat for the eyes and ears. In about 12.5 minutes time, though. Up by nearly 0.2 of a second, so you can see slowly gaining more and more confidence with that machine. It was a bit of a troubled start for him, a bit of teething issues with the number 61, but now as he peels out of turn 11, he's balancing very finely on a 0.2 improvement. And the Mustang, of course, having to contend with an additional 20 kilos of ballast. It's not exactly to his benefit coming into this round of the championship. Make no mistake of that, the Ford is an absolute trooper. It doesn't matter what balance of performance package you throw at it. In the hands of drivers like Kieran Rod and Cas van Veltzen, you are in no short supply for exciting drives. Speaking of Van Veltzen, he's up the field at the moment, just about to cross the line behind Mir Ismail Rashidov, who still holds on to a very commanding third place at the moment. He's making up that second row with Van Veltzen, and it's going to be a very, very exciting second row to watch alongside our front runners for GT3. So out through Blanchimont, he's up by nearly half a second here. It is blistering speed. On his way down towards the bus stop chicane. Very, very good effort, I must say, here towards the second half of GT3 qualifying. As a matter of fact, with a very, very well-placed send on the exit of turn 20, he's up by a second and up to 7th. Very valiant stuff then by Kieran Rod. Having a look around the field then, fellow V8, that being the 835 of Tyler Vermaak with Lexus, on his way out of Pouhon. Last lap there was his personal best, good enough for 5th at 2:17. Actually, no, that's a mistake there. His last lap was at 2:17.762. I think it's just I saw the 2 on the end and I thought it was the same thing. Still on board then with Vermaak. The solitary Lexus of this championship. I'd say definitely the dark horse of GT3 as much as the Ginettas and the KTMs are the dark horses of GT4. It is an unorthodox choice, but as we saw over the course of Season 2 of the Sunday League, in the right hands, it is an absolute weapon, this car. It's fantastic performance. Old school handling demeanour. It's loose but fast. You can see in the hands of Vermaak at the moment, he's having very little issue commanding it around the field. He gets across the line there to start another flying lap. Down towards La Source. Got about 9 minutes, just under 10, before the start of GT4 qualifying. For those of you joining us now, we're here in the end of GT3 qualifying, just about to start GT4 qualifying for the opening round of the 2025 NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship by Malois Transport. Live exclusively here on TRTN. And it has been already an interesting opening spectacle, to say the least, in our GT3 field. Currently still holding on to pole position is Ilkea Kilinkoglu in both class and overall qualifying standings. Toby Cyril still playing second banana in the number 7 BMW. Right now, we're just quickly tuning in with some of our drivers further down the GT3 order. Now, we saw that improvement from 9th to 7th by Kieran Rod. We're watching with Tyler Vermaak, fellow V8 here. From Ford goes Lexus. Out through turn 10 into turn 11. It's a thunderous noise from that machine. Number 61, having just crossed the line, that was Kieran Rod again, still in 7th position at the moment. The number 7 of Toby Cyril is about to cross the line whilst we still watch on board with Tyler Vermaak. He's nearly up 3 tenths of a second, as a matter of fact, does make the mark there. Nearly 4 tenths on the exit of campus. The number 7 just crosses the line now. Toby Cyril up to pole position, so we do have that announcement. Toby Cyril seizes pole at the moment. Having a look around the field to see if there is a rebuttal on the way by Ilkea Kilinkoglu. Doesn't appear to be the case. So very remarkable stuff indeed. Number 35 still in the pit lane. 8 minutes left to go, of course. Still plenty of time for a Kilinkoglu to come back and strike at the heart of pole position. We're still on board, though, with Tyler Vermaak here in the solitary number 835 Lexus RCF on his way out of Blanchimont. 3 tenths up on his personal best at the back of the top 5, halfway in on the GT3 grid. Where can he land it on the exit of turns 19 and 20? It was very graciously held there. Nearly half a second. In fact, yes, half a second up as he crosses the line up into the top 3. So fantastic stuff on the end of that lap there by Vermaak. We've got to see improvements across the board then for some of our V8s. Kilinkoglu has been let loose on the track now. The 35 is back out. We're watching quickly here with Ben Cole on his way down the Kemmel. You can see just ahead of him there was the previous pole sitter. Let's get a view on board with our new pole sitter, as a matter of fact. See if we can catch on board here. You can see the GT4s are already queuing. You can see that's Christian Lebay, James Mason queuing in the pit lane. And there's Kieran Rodd. You can see he's just going to roll on by. I think there he is. There he goes. John Prine also joining the queue, as does Kevin Crane. Cas van Veltzen crosses the line there on his personal best. He's 4th fastest right now, still chasing the shadow of, well, was at one point chasing the shadow of Mir Ismail Rashidov. They've actually swapped hands. Taking a look overall then, it's Toby Cyril on pole position. Now, it previously was Rashidov in 3rd. Van Veltzen then got by him by 0.2 of a second. It is only 300ths off from the time we saw just gone there by Tyler Vermaak, now on his way down towards Puon. Checking in then with the last of the top 5 quali shootouts with 6.5 minutes on the clock here is Cas van Veltzen versus Mir Ismail Rashidov. Number 420 versus number 21. Ford versus Porsche here in Spa-Francorchamps. Number 7 does cross the line. So Toby Cyril is back onto the track, setting even more times. Current leading time then a 2:16.597. That's nearly 2 tenths up from Ilkay Kilinkoglu's time. Checking in with these two then. The fight for that second row now starts to get underway, because you can see that gap between Van Veltzen and Vermaak. Two people who have shared, let's say, a interesting rivalry, to say the least, in the Console Endurance Series over the exploits between K1 Esports and Euro Titans. Now they find themselves on level ground here in GT3. Right now, though, it's the story of brand new names with the debut, well, the NLRL debut, I should say the least, of Mir Ismail Rashidov. So inside that top 5. We've still actually, I believe, yet to see a time then by Ben Cole, and I believe he may be out of the session because I can't see him on the charts anywhere. So Van Veltzen's been let up ahead there by Rashidov. Will stay on board with the number 21. He coils up, getting ready for another flying lap. Crossing the line then, Van Veltzen takes 3rd. So Rashidov now lining up for a revenge drive here. He's still in 5th. Vermaak's now down to 4th, sandwiched in between Van Veltzen and Rashidov. Number 30, Nolan Cabrisseau, is just next to the line at the moment. We'll track his progress from the bottom left. We're still on board then with Porsche's Mir Ismail Rashidov. Cabrisseau having trouble at turn 19 and 20. He was really coiling up for that one, so that was clearly a warm-up lap for him. Fellow Porsche, Rashidov, on his way down the Kemmel. Porsche really do tend to struggle in the straight lines here. That flat 6 engine's not giving them the boost they need, but it does give them phenomenal braking power. Just because of the layout of that car, it just gives it this incredible poke into the corners. It's a very polarising car to drive as well. From the people that I've known to have competed in the 992 GT3R, of course, during our time as TRR, we knew the IGF Motorsport team, how they competed in the Xbox Endurance Championships back on GHR. The 6 hours in Nürburgring, it was a very polarising experience for them then to take to a car that's very alien in nature to the rest of its compatriots in GT3. There's no other real comparison in GT3. There is one in GT4. Sadly, no one picked it. The Alpine A110. Would have loved to have seen it. No bias whatsoever. Up the field, though. Kieran Rodd in the 61 and the 113. Kyle Jenkins. We're still on board with Rashidov. Clearly, there was some issues. We can see right now that we are but mere moments away from the start of GT4 qualifying. Do thoroughly look forward to seeing what these guys can do. As a matter of fact, we'll just quickly pan away from Rashidov and Cabrisseau just to see what the situation's looking like in there, because so I'm told a lot of line skipping. So whoever's doing it, stop it, because you're ruining qualifying for the rest of us. And there's Christian Lebay, still at the front of the line. Okay, no one's jumped in front of him. No one's jumped in front of Mason. It's Toby Cyril. Let's quickly catch back on board with Rashidov then. Do not want to miss the end of his lap here at Spa. Gets across the line, but he's 3.1 seconds down, so it was a bit strange for him there. Last lap was at 2:24.15. Not the progress he's looking for here, especially as time wears thin The GT4s will be hotly awaiting their release onto the track. Last couple of times to have come in then will be the number 7, number 878, I believe. So the number 878 has returned. That is Ben Cole, who has really been struggling at the moment. I think more with connection than anything. Toby Cyril, our pole sitter right now, both in GT3 and overall. Can he defend the mark for pole position? As I believe the number 35 may still be in the paddock. So that could be the sign then by Ilkay Akininkoglu that he's thrown the towel in and will be starting at the best of things in second place here in GT3 and overall for this race. He'll be on the front row, leading the charge alongside Cyril down through Eau Rouge and Raidillon in what is a 22-car grid. It's gonna get dicey. It is gonna get very, very dicey indeed. Cyril to the line then. Doesn't find an improvement over his best. Not that I think he's too concerned with it now. Holding on to pole position. You see Alan Alexander getting a little bit friendly with the back end of James Mason's BMW in the queue there for the start of GT4 qualifying. The last driver then to take to the line has only 55 seconds to do so. And it's Kieran Rodd with Ford. Will there be that improvement Rod is searching for? He is so close to it at the moment. 7th overall and 7th in category. 2:18.1 to beat for his personal best. He is hanging in the balance there by only a few hundredths of a second, as among the last times today in GT3 qualifying. Rod to the line. Sadly, it doesn't... Oh, maybe it could be an improvement very, very nearly as he gets to the line there. And sadly, not an improvement. He's off by 8 hundredths of a second then, right at the very end of GT3 qualifying, as we very closely await then the start of the bedlam, of the utter madness to behold at the end of GT3 qualifying, and so begins the start of GT4 qualifying. 30 minutes on the clock then, and our GT3s are out onto the field. Christian Lebay will lead the charge then with the Camaro. You can see they've been waiting for that for way too long. Oh my word. You can see still on the track at the moment, Kyle Jenkins is actually caught out in the fray there, with the GT4s now onto the field. An absolute swarm making its way down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. You can see amongst it Ginettas, BMWs, Camaros and Crossbows. All in all down towards turn 7 through 9. So let's get the discussion up about GT4 qualifying, and it is a very close affair indeed. Wesley Kuiper leads the timing charts with a 2:29.647, and only 13 thousandths of a second away from him is Hayden Prodger in the KTM. He's second with a 2:29.660. Then it seems to be a mirror match on the second row between Roman Zhdanov and Christian Lebay. Another 13 thousandth of a second difference, a 2:30.777 to a 2:30.790 between Zhdanov in the Mercedes and Lebay on screen at the moment in the Camaro. Then Ginetta's Alan Alexander makes 5th fastest with a 2:31.225. Claudio Cisternas with McLaren makes a 2:32.541. That'll put him provisionally in 6th position according to our predictions. And then it's a Camaro 7, 8 and 9 with Kevin Crane, Carl Martel and John Prine, a 2:32.665, a 2:33.257 and a 2:33.717. And then rounding out the qualifying predictions, Jamie Ball with Ginetta 10th with a 2:33.937. So we're on board then with the first of our drivers into qualifying today for GT4 is Christian Lebay. On his way out through Blanchimont, leading the charge then, Christian Lebay. He's got quite the credentials behind the wheel of that 119. One in TRC's GT4 category in the very same 119 you see on screen at the moment. Also was the Season 1 champion in the NLRL Sunday League behind the wheel of the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. Also one of several drivers and the leading figurehead of the Malois racing team, who's competing in primarily Camaros this round. Right behind him there, you can see Alan Alexander, David and Goliath, as it were. The mighty Camaro, absolute giant that it is when put up against the Ginetta G55. Yeah, we saw people in chat there congratulating us on not saying Expo. I mean, that's what they want you to say, right? Realistically, you put, X, it's cross. I think there's leniency to that rule though. There is, so you know, like the Nissan X Trail. I don't think there's anyone who calls it Nissan Cross Trail. I've never met anyone who calls it the Nissan Cross Trail. There is leniency to this, but I know KTM want you to call it the Crossbow. Because why would you call it the Expo? Anyway, we're on a tangent. On board with Labay then, as he starts the leading flying lap. Sadly not counting too much in our telemetry there, but it will show up towards the end of this lap. Right behind him then, to make our first times of the session, Alan Alexander and James Mason and Hayden Prodger as well. It's going to be a very lively field indeed here for the last 30 minutes of qualifying today, here in round 1 of the championship. Down towards campus we go, turns 13 and 14, then Stavolo up next at turn 15. You can see very little compromise involved here by Labay. This is a machine he knows like the back of his hand. He's very much so at home behind the wheel of the Camaro, and he's using every available inch of that track. You can see this is their major problem though. It's going to be turn 16. He got very close to it there, but I've seen plenty of drivers already in GT4 go wide of that section of the track, and this is going to be something that comes back and bites them on the backside over the course of the next 25 minutes of qualifying. Out through Blanchimont we go then with Christian Labay. We pull away our telemetry on the top left hand side, bring up the timing charts, and let's see where he ends up. Now we'll be watching from behind where Kyle Jenkins is, as that marks the end of the GT3 field and brings us in to the GT4. So Labay across the line he goes. Next into the fray from behind him will be James Mason. See the 413 across the line, second fastest overall. Prodger crosses the line just now, but I believe, yes, an invalid time for Prodger. So Kevin Quain goes third, Brian fourth in GT4. So the Malois racing team making a precedent known already. First, third and fourth in their opening laps. Of course, they've still got the rest of the grid to spec up against. David Silf there goes second fastest in GT4. Number 55, that was Claudio Cisternas, just crossing the line now, but on an invalid time. He'll have one more lap to get that proved to the marshals. Wesley Kuiper then down to 19 and 20 at the bus stop chicane. What can the Mercedes do then up against this field? It looks very lively at the moment by Chevrolet, courtesy of Christian Labay. He goes second fastest then by only 100th of a second there. It's a little bit harder to see because it's compared against the overall leading time of this session, but have a gander at that. That is remarkably close. As a matter of fact, looking at it there, that's 5 thousandths of a second between Labay and Kuiper. The 57 just crossed the line there. Dimitri Snai with Ginetta. By the looks of it there, that's looking at its 6th fastest in GT4. So let's go and catch on board with some of our drivers whilst they're out on track here. The leading car at the moment for GT4, Christian Labay, will start 10th on this grid, but first among the fray for the GT4s. Right now, he'll be the next one to the line, so we'll stay on board with Labay. As a matter of fact, let's try and catch on board with Prodger here, who was looking to punch well above his weight in that KTM in this qualifying session. We'll see what hopes he's got here. He's up by 2.1 seconds over his invalid lap last time around. It's looking very, very hopeful for him. So we're on board with the KTM. The dark horse of GT4 then, the Crossbow. And the smallest engine, no less, as well. I mean, it's really going up against some uncertain odds here. You look at it from a technical standpoint, that's got a 2-litre Audi EA113 engine, same one as in the S3. Mentioned it 3 times this stream so far, and it's up against a 4-litre AMG engine, courtesy of the AMG GT4, and then once more up against a 6.2-litre Chevrolet LT1 engine. So it's really the David to their Goliath, and we'll see what Prodger can do here. He's down across the line next in the KTM, and goes 4th fastest in class there, 2:30.407 by Prodger. Very, very well done then on that last lap just gone. Labay's crossed the line, holds on to that first place position, but not to an improvement of his overall. He's actually 2 seconds and 6 tenths down. Prine 9th overall, well, not 9th overall, sorry, 9th in class. Quain 7th. Van Veltzen, that's not who we're trying to find. This is the problem when you try and navigate through the menus normally, is you end up with situations like this. This is Claudio Cisternas to the line. The number 55, our only McLaren in the championship. 10th in class then, as he crosses the line. The 111, Wesley Kuiper. Down to the line he goes. Half a second up. It could be pole. It is pole for GT4 by Wesley Kuiper. But with just under 22 minutes, as a matter of fact, left to go, can the Dutchman hold on to it in GT4? And this is the first we've seen of him competing down in the lower classes. Normally a resident of GT3, where he's gone toe-to-toe in his time with some of the drivers that now occupy the GT3 grid. And has done so quite remarkably well. I think this step down has allowed him to relax a little bit with Mercedes. Right now, he's absolutely flying. Maybe down a category, but it's still the same Flying Dutchman we know here on NLRL. Just having a look around the field then, see where our next times are coming from. Right now, it's the number 119. It's the Chevrolet that started the session off strong. Now down to second in GT4. And in order for, Lebay to find his way back up to that top step with Prodger in hot pursuit as well. Look at the frankly frightening speed there by Prodger behind him. He's going to have to find a whopping 4/10 of a second there. So not an easy feat for the Camaro. But we must bear in mind, of course, bringing us back to the discussion of balance of performance that we mentioned very earlier on in the stream. Looking at that BOP again, Chevrolet have got advantageous balance of performance over Mercedes. They've lost 16 kilos. Mercedes hasn't lost a peep of that weight. So Lebay down to the line. Prodger behind him. Down through the bus stop chicane we go. Sadly, not to an improvement for Lebay. What will it be for Prodger, though? That's the real question, as he's in hot pursuit from behind him there. And does shift a position, as a matter of fact, and up to second in GT4. So this has gone from sort of all right to, okay, maybe a little less acceptable for Christian Lebay. It would be a bit rich to say bad to worse, but we know what his demands are in GT4. We know the kind of presence he commands down in the lower categories with that Camaro. We know what he's capable of. So maybe he might be punching the air a little bit behind the wheel of that Camaro to have not found 100% of the performance he needs. Well, maybe he's just waiting for the race. Of course, 2 hours on the clock here. 2 mandated pit stops for only fuel. Tyres are not a mandate for this set of regulations. Maybe he'll come to prove himself when the lights go green and we go racing for the first time here in the solo multi-class endurance. But right now, you can see already he's got a bit more of a pep in his step as he head down to Melmedy, but then that quickly comes away after a little trip over the curbs. So very fine balancing act for Chevrolet. You really see in this opening qualifying session, it's David v Goliath. The monstrously large Camaro up against the titular KTM. We can see another Camaro here. This is John Prine side by side with David Silf on the way down towards Le Com. Not that I think he'll be too particularly happy, and I think either side was very happy about that at all. Fellow Camaro here, Kevin Quain. And a little bit of desync problems out of turn 11. Right now holds on to 9th in GT4. Looking through our GT3 grid there is Claudio Cisternas. 10th in class at the moment. Dimitri Snai's just making his way out onto track now, so we'll be checking out his progress over the course of the session. Still 18.5 minutes left in it. Here's Jake Garrett, 12th in class at the moment. Eyeing up at the back of the field here. Might be able to dodge some of that action down through Eau Rouge, Radion, and then further down the Kemmel straight into Le Com and Melmedy and pick up a few extra easy positions on the start of the race. I mean, that has been a strategy we've seen before here at Spa. It's a limited success, but things are extra sort of unexpected with the element of GT4 involved. The 222 is next to the line then. We're on board with Hayden Prodger, who looks to be on a sizable improvement, perhaps even gunning for pole position. He's got half a second in the burners here on the 222. What can the Brit do as he's out through the bus stop chicane? Could it be KTM on pole? 17 minutes left to go. It's a 6/10 improvement across the line. It is pole for Hayden Prodger. Remarkable pull through by the KTM here. But bear in mind, still over half the session left to go. Plenty of time for both Lebay and Kuiper to forge a comeback. But if that is the message Prodger intends to send, it has been heard loud and clear by the rest of the field there in GT4. Here's Christian Lebay still gunning for a leading position in GT4. He's now down 2 positions, courtesy of both Proger and from Kuiper. He's not going to be particularly happy, but bear in mind, as I mentioned there, over half the session left to go, there is still plenty of time. I think right now, as we hit the middle sort of portion of GT4 qualifying, just like we saw in GT3, it's a lot of teething issues on display for the drivers at this time. The 116 just crossed the line then. That was Jake Garrett up to 5th in class then. Remarkable pull through after a late entry to GT4 qualifying, but the 116 has definitely made his way up towards the sort of middle of the pack there for GT4. Will still be looking from a distance at the GT3 grid ahead of them. But I think for their sake, they don't want to be involved in anything close to what's going to go on in the absolute bedlam of the Premier class of this championship. Wesley Kuiper then, our previous pole sitter, took the pole off of Christian Lebay and has now had the pole taken off of him by Hayden Proger. What can the Dutchman do in the 111 here, as he seems to be plateauing through Lecombe and Melmedy? We saw from a testimony there from the GT3 drivers, one of which, Tyler Vermack, said that couldn't extract 100% of the performance in that session because we're being conscious about the tyres, as there does appear to be a tyre limit restriction on, so only a certain number of available sets of tyres to use. So that's definitely going to enforce this element of strategy for these drivers. How much mileage do they actually put down during these qualifying sessions? How much of it do they know it's going to forge an improvement per lap? A lot of this is now very, very tactical for what is something that really for a lot of these drivers comes instinctively as qualifying. It's really a feeling. It's a state of mind when they're in the flow of qualifying as to where can they find available grip. You can feel it. It's a tactile feeling in the way these cars perform. And it's something that I've only ever been able to see drivers at this level and above of esports really be able to understand. And that is genuinely quite bizarre, because it's almost this phantom sensation, because of course these are virtual machines. They're not real cars. We're not actually at Spa. We're not actually racing in real life. This of course is all virtual, but I think that goes a long way to show you the depth of technology at the time, where these drivers can now palpably feel where grip is available on track. The game's able to convey that in a way that feels organic. This pushing and pulling sadly hasn't helped Kuiper over the course of this lap. You can see when we see the drives out of these the drivers competing towards that front row. I think we saw it out of Cyril, we saw it out of Achille Koglu, and now we see it out of both Kuiper, Lebay and Proger. Is this very vivid kind of handling. You can tell that whereabouts they're finding grip, whereabouts they're being more conscious about the car. It's something that feels very alive, very colourful in the way that they drive. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but you can feel it. You can tell that it's there. Here's David Silf then to the line. Number 443 on an improvement of half a second. Gets to the line from 4th position up to 3rd. So Silf on a very late lunge here in GT4 qualifying to make a mark. Getting a look at those times then over the course of today's GT4 qualifying. It's Proger still leading the charge there by about 0.3 of a second to Wesley Kuiper. Now David Silf enters the fray on that second row, pushing Christian Lebay down to 4th. Jake Garrett makes the top 5 ahead of Roman Stanov. Alan Alexander behind him as well. Makes, by the looks of it there, 7th position for GT4. James Mason 8th, Dimitri Snine 9th, Kevin Quain in 10th, Claudio Cisternas 11th, John Prine in 12th position. We just saw an improvement there by Alan Alexander. Goes up ahead of Roman Stanov, but now behind Jake Garrett. He's just outside of the top 5 there in GT4. Back on board with David Silf, who looks to be on an improvement mark already, nearly scraping into that 0.2 of a second bracket. Will stay on board with the Mercedes, as it's looking to be a very, very promising lap here from David Silf. Better known for his exploits with MSA. Up in GT3, as an individual talent, he's really able to spread his wings and soar here in that Mercedes. It's very close to track limits though there. Could have nearly been the end of what is looking to be a very spry lap indeed. He's up 0.3 of a second. Could he even be looking to gun for the current leading Mercedes? That being Wesley Kuiper, who I believe has just taken, or retaken, for that matter, pole position. We'll have a double check on that very quickly, as I just saw the number change for him there, whether or not that was a disconnect from... No, as a matter of fact, so he's still in second. I believe we may have had a disconnect then, because the numbers did change about for our drivers. But it's a Mercedes 2-3 in GT4 at the current time. 12 minutes left to go then in GT4 qualifying. GT3 gave us a lot to talk about. GT4 isn't leaving us hanging here for things to discuss. And right now, the next topic of discussion is, where does David Silf rank up in this session? He's up by nearly 0.2 of a second. He makes his way to Blanchimont. It was a promising start to his lap. It's come away a little bit through the middle into final sector where he's bleeding time. It's going to take a very good run through the bus stop chicane to bring some of that progress back into view. And it's very good to start off at turn 19. Then turn 20. He's up by 0.3 of a second as he goes barreling to the line. I think it might just bleed down to a 0.2 improvement, but toward the line he goes then, second in GT4. Very, very remarkable stuff then by David Silf. Second in category, he'll start 10th overall. So yeah, we did have a disconnect. We're down to 20 as a matter of fact, participants. It says 21, that includes me. And I am not racing, pretty obviously. So back on board with Christian Lebay. He's now 4th in category, down past both Mercedes of Silf and Kuiper, and the leading KTM of Hayden Proger. Lebay then to the line. Doesn't appear to be an improvement, but he's warming up for another flying lap. Proger is behind him. Ten and a half minutes left to go then. Proger doing a 2:30.015. Lebay's last lap a 2:31.620. Not to an improvement there. And not an improvement either for Hayden Proger. Right now, these two plateauing inside the top 5. For Lebay, I think his time might come in the actual race itself here. I think he's thinking more for the road ahead rather than the next 10 minutes. You can see it's there. It's this little bit of a flick on the exit of Radeon. He's scrubbing time. He's not able to carry anywhere near as much momentum as the mid-engine cars like the KTM. And he's suffering for it because he had a lightning start in qualifying, this qualifying start in GT4. But now you can see he's losing upwards of 0.3 of a second out through Eau Rouge and Radeon each time around. It's just the track's not in optimum conditions for him anymore. Maybe the tyres are getting too hot, whatever it could be. But you can see that he's having to wrestle more and more with the car. And it is a far cry, the measured performance we saw from him at the start of qualifying. Let's see what he's got in the bookings then. As he gets towards the end of this next lap, we'll catch up with him on his way towards Blanchimont in a moment's time. On towards the perspective of another of the Malois Chevrolets, it's John Prine. Right now sitting just towards the back row. As a matter of fact, that is provisionally last for GT4 because 13th would be me. I signed up in the Aston. So right now he'll be looking down the row of the rest of the grid as we head towards Eau Rouge and Radeon. Can he forge an improvement from that? You can see he's struggling on the exit of turn 11. And that seems to be the Achilles heel for the Camaro right now, is understeer. Prevalent amounts of it. And it seems that the track feeling a bit strange as a sentiment carried across GT3. We've had Tyler Vermack chime in there from the number 835 Lexus. He starts up in a very confident position in GT3, and he did say, well, since the server did get reset, the track has been feeling very, very strange. Now, it could be down to a multitude of factors. Realistically, you'd be looking at things like, say, track temperature, you'd be looking at track degradation, you'd be looking at ambient temperatures. All of these things can affect performance in little almost placebo-level ways that can really start to mess with the drivers' heads. See here, Silf doesn't appear to be on an improvement. You can see that it's classified as an outlap, but he's really giving it the beans there in the 443. He's already second in class. He is gunning for a class pole, but you can see there, slows all the way down, and he's coiling up for another lap. And he's got 8 minutes to get more times in, so about 4, maybe 3.5 laps left in him on this stint before the end of qualifying, both for GT4 and overall, to bring us on to the first of our 2-hour races in this championship. It's going to be a very, very exciting day, and it's already proven to be action throughout in these qualifying sessions. John Prine goes across the line behind him for a 2:36.435, not to an improvement, sadly, for the Camaro number 22. Jake Garrett's up by nearly half a second on his way to Blanchimont. Mercedes has really been relishing in the opportunity today. You've got to hand it to them. It has been quite the pull through. They're on neutral weight gain, so they are not really to benefit or to detriment for this round of the championship. They sit dead middle of the alignment chart for that. But for Jake Garrett, down across the line on what looks to be an improvement. Is it to a valid time? Yes, it is, because he's up to 5th in GT4. So Mercedes seems to be the one to be at the moment. I'm sensing a little bit of a meta starting to appear here. Now, there was talks of the meta in chats leading up to today's race, and the AMG was a name that came up on that list. It is a pretty solid jack-of-all-trades machine. Mercedes knew what the task at hand was when it came to developing the AMG GT, because it is a very competent platform, whether it's GT3 or GT4. I mean, there's even entries for this in GT2, which is an ultra-rare sighting because no one runs GT2 in ACC. See right now, Wesley Kuiper, despite being pushed down by, and I would like to point this out, another AMG, he is now on his way to potentially retaking P2 from Sylph. So we head down to the line here. He's half a second up. It's remarkably fast by Wesley Kuiper. And as a matter of fact, it's not just second, it's pole in GT4 for the Dutchman as he gets across the line there. A 2:29.2 by Wesley Kuiper in the 111 Mercedes. 6 minutes left to go. What's the response then by KTM and fellow Mercedes, Hayden Prodger and David Sylph? Well, let's find out here, because Prodger is 1.9 seconds down, but coiling up for what appears to be another flying lap. Now he's got just under 6 minutes to make the mark here in qualifying. He's had a very strong opening half. Can he round things out here on the opening qualifying of the season on a high note for KTM? The world stacked on his shoulders there with the Mercedes attacking from all sides. Let's follow on with Hayden Prodger as he starts another flying lap here. 5.5 minutes left to go then in GT4 qualifying. We'll stay on board with them for the time being. We'll be back in just a moment's time. And as we're still on board here with Prodger, he's bouncing between detriment and improvement there by only a few hundredths of a second. It's a fairly promising opening sector, but now as we hit the midway, this is going to be the deciding factor, very nearly invalidated over turn 11. But he's keeping the ball rolling. He might be down a few hundredths of a second here. He's got to really pull through in the next couple of corners. This is the make or break zone at Spa for a lot of people in this middle sector. We heard testimonies there from some of the people in chat that those jack-of-all-trades setups, they can be either a benefit or a hazard, really, because it can either be jack-of-all-trades, master of none, you end up suffering on both sides, or it ends up being just sort of painfully middle of the road. It's something that you sometimes do have to commit to the extreme sides of things, lower aero or higher aero, and just suffer everywhere else. Right now, though, Prodger appears to be suffering on the exit of middle sector on the way to sector 3. He's down at 0.2 of a second. It would take quite the miracle here for him to salvage this lap. Fortunately, he's got another in the bookings here before the end of qualifying. Can he fight his way back to pole position there? That is the real question on the table for Wesley Kuiper. He is currently commanding the field with an iron vice. So we see with Prodger then, a very good entry to turn 19 and a very good exit to turn 20, but it's just sadly not enough to salvage the lap. He makes his way to the line to not an improvement, a 2:29.565. He needed a 2:29.362 and below to be considered an improvement. Fortunately, under 3 minutes left to go. He's still got time for maybe just 2 more laps, this being one of them. We'll catch up with him later on, though. Take a look around the field. Christian Lebay's brought it in to the pits. He's down to 6th then. So getting a look at the standings one last time before our final flurry of times make their way through. Wesley Kuiper leads GT4 with Hayden Prodger pursuing him by only about a 10th away. That's all he's got to find there for pole position. Very, very close stuff up front. David Sylph also looking to make a mark here. He's in 3rd in the GT4s. James Mason's up to 4th and Jake Garrett up to 5th. That pushes LeBay down to 6th, and sandwiched in between himself and Roman Zdanov are the two Ginettas, Alan Alexander and Dimitri Snai. Zdanov then behind them, Quain, Cisternas and Prine to round out the GT4 grid. 1:16 having just crossed the line then. Jake Garrett starting another flying lap. The number 26 is about to start another lap as well. Alan Alexander with Ginetta. I must say, they have found a very nice little place to nestle themselves in there, the two Ginettas of Alexander and Snai. But I do fear for their safety on their way down the Kemmel Straight, because they are... And no offence to the drivers, obviously they can't control us. Those Ginettas are unimaginably slow in a straight line. By a factor of upwards of nearly 20 miles an hour difference. They are built for small tracks like Alton, like Zolder, like Brands. Spa, I mean, it's like trying to use a rubber ring to cross the English Channel. It's a bit of a... You can do it. Not that you'd want to. But for Alan Alexander, it seems that punching above his weight is what the Ginetta is exactly made for. And he's had a very spry start. You'll give that to him. And fair play to Alan Alexander for choosing the Ginetta. Bold choice, very bold. We quickly just see here Claudio Cisternas to the line from 11th in class on a 7/10 improvement, but sadly not into the top 10 in GT4. We're checking then the 443. David Sills down 0.3 of a second as he makes his way out of campus. And Stavolo now through the curb of Paul Frere up towards Blanchemont. I don't believe an improvement is on the horizon on this lap, but I think if he really does get the hammer down here, he might just get to the line before the end of qualifying and have one more lap to play with here in GT4. I mean, he's holding on to a power play position here. He's on that second row for GT4. He's eyeing up that front two at the moment of Proger and Kuiper. It's going to make a very exciting GT4 grid. We'll be watching on board with the GT3s for the start, and we'll be quickly getting on board wherever the battles do take us. And this is going to be the real struggle, I think, for us, is trying to get all of the battles on the same page here. So, crossing the line with just over 10 seconds to go. Sylph has one more lap to spare. We'll catch up with him towards the end of that lap. The number 26 at the moment, Alan Alexander, doesn't appear to be on an improvement as he makes his way out of turn 16 and calls it quits there. But a fair play to him. He'll start 7th in GT4, 15th overall. Let's catch on board then with the 111. The next car to set a valid flying lap, if we can catch them here, is Wesley Kuiper, our current pole sitter for GT4. He'll start 9th overall on a shrinking grid of GT3s, I must add, as well. Very peculiar. Seems a lot more people were excited for the GT4s than they were for the GT3s here, but we'll try and give them the equal respect that they have governed. Kuiper then out of turn 15. He's down half a second. He was gunning to just go a little bit above the already perfect times that he's been setting at 2:29.2 dead. Was the fastest time for GT4, but that's the end of the line for Wesley Kuiper. He's going to have to pray then that what he's done here is enough. Proger's down by 0.4 of a second. That just trips over to half a second detriment for the KTM. But I must say, even despite that, even if he is to round this session off second in class, 10th overall, that is really quite some heroic stuff already to give the sort of opening precedent for this season, what GT4 is going to pan out to look like. Have a GT4 crossbow in the play here. It's going to be an exciting opener. Make no mistake of that. Here's hoping for a clean start by all. We have 20 cars in circulation for round one of the championship. Proger's down by nearly 0.6 of a second. We'll catch up with him later on. As a matter of fact, he is the only driver left on the grid now. The 443 of David Sylph did call it quits there. He'll be starting in third. Proger invalidates for fourth position. Not for fourth, for second position. My mistake there. So that's the end of our total qualifying session as we get onto the recounting standings of our grid for round one of the championship. Let's just quickly run you through some of the news that has recently cropped up in the world of motorsport. The first bit of news here is hot off the plates, and now we can't confirm their validity at this time, but in NASCAR news, Ram, the truck subsidiary of Dodge, is rumoured at a return to the Craftsman Truck Series, has leaked surface online of a potential new Ram-inspired Craftsman truck. And these rumours are unsubstantiated at best, but it is looking to be very, very promising for Ram here. This will be the first time they've competed in a long, long time in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. We do await their warm welcome In World Endurance Championship news, of course, you've all seen that Porsche has revealed a road-legal version of its 963 hypercar, known as the 963 RSP. Sadly, though, it's only a one of one, but it is carrying on that legacy of Porsche making road-going, road-capable models of their race-winning endurance races. They did so with the 917, and then they did so with the 911 GT1, making it the Strassenversen. This is the latest iteration of that philosophy, the 963 RSP. The last bit of our news then today, before we round out our news segment and on to the read of the grid, MotoGP news, as Marc Marquez wins yet another of the sprint races this season, winning in Aragon. So, on to the grid recount then. Starting us off in GT3, it's Toby Cyril on pole position, and alongside him on the front row, Ilkay Erkilin-Koglu. Cas van Velzen makes the second row, alongside Tyler Vermaak with Ford and Lexus. Mir Ismail Rashidov makes the top five ahead of Ben Cheeseman. Kieran Rodd in seventh, and then in eighth position is Kyle Jenkins. Sadly, a no-show by the 878 of Ben Cole. On to GT4 then, and a much larger grid than its GT3 counterparts. Wesley Kuiper on pole for GT4. Starting on the front row alongside him is Hayden Prodger. David Silf in third in GT4 will start 11th overall. James Mason in fourth in GT4. In the number 413 BMW, Jake Garrett makes the top five for GT4 ahead of Christian Lebay, who's down to sixth in class. Alan Alexander and Dimitri Snai make seventh and eighth with Ginetta ahead of Roman Stanov and Kevin Quain, who round out the top 10 for GT4. And then just outside that top 10 for GT4, Claudio Cisternas in the solitary number 55 McLaren and John Prine in the number 22 Camaro. So a very exciting precedent on our hands today. Wesley Kuiper chiming in chat saying, bottled a 28.8. You're already on pole. I wouldn't even argue with it at this point. So this is going to make an interesting little dichotomy here. Between GT3 and GT4, you have an ultra-competitive top 5 in GT3 and an ultra-competitive top 5 in GT4. There will be, obviously, the noticeable difference in performance as we hit the Kemmel straight out of turn 6. Those GT3s will be up and away and gone. 2 mandated pit stops, of course, both for fuel. Tyres completely optional for this race, leaves an open strategy for both categories. And a 2-hour race on the mark. We're about 2 minutes out then from the start of the formation lap here for round 1 of the Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship. To give you some understanding of where the season will take us next, well, our next and latest round to come after this one will be on the 21st of June at Mount Panorama, and that's going to be a very exciting race indeed. Bathurst is an absolute treat no matter the category. Throw the two together, and you've got a very interesting salad indeed. And of course, as always, it wouldn't be possible to bring you these performances week in, week out without the support of Malois Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. If someone you know has a business in Canada or is located in Canada looking for an efficient and transportation brokerage service for your business, visit their website on www.malois-transport.ca. That's www.malois-transport.ca. They've been very long-time supporters of our sort of proceedings here on TRTN. It wouldn't have been possible to bring to you the content on NLRL, whether it's the Sunday League, whether it's the Console Endurance Series, or whether or not it's today's brand new championship here in the Solo Multiclass. Without their support, they have been behind us every single step of the way. And now they even make their own physical appearance on track, courtesy of the Malois racing team of the many Chevrolet Camaros you see on the grid at the moment. Among them, Christian Lebay, Kevin Quain and John Prine. So we're about 30 seconds out. We'll be given the 30-second warning. We'll be going on board with the pole setter both for GT3 and overall, Toby Cyril in the number 7 BMW M4 to take us onto the field for the first time. We'll be starting on this very stretch of the track. As a matter of fact, you don't start down on the Grand Prix straight down into La Source like most of you would have thought. Those of you who are keen-eyed viewers of anything GT related know that we start our endurance endeavours down here, parallel to the GT paddock, on our way out of turn 1 into turn 2 and then up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon at turns 3 through 5. So taking us away is Toby Cyril, pole sitter for GT3. Gets away the only BMW as well up in GT3, and he's made quite an impression this early on in the championship, and already showing up the likes of staple talents like Erkilin-Koglu, Van Velzen and Vermaak. We also see new names appear in that field as well. Mir Ismail Rashidov is one among them. That number 21 Porsche is definitely going to be one to keep a close eye on as an emerging performance. Toby Cyril, of course, used to race in the K1 Esports team alongside Martin van Manen, both of which now have left the American team, opting to go their own way here. You see Cas van Veltzen trying to get his way out onto the Kemmel straight here. You can see getting hard onto the brakes, trying to heat up those brake discs, giving him as much stopping power on his run down the Kemmel and down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. But he's really slowing down there. Is there trouble by any chance for Cas van Veltzen? As a matter of fact, let's quickly check in with him here, because that looks to be potentially some issues gone awry there. He's all the way back behind Kieran Rodd, as a matter of fact. We see here, that's the pole sitter for GT4. Alongside him there, the car that qualified third, that's Wesley Kuiper and David Silf, both with Mercedes. It seems to be the dominant manufacturer right now, but that dark horse, as always, if we can get a look, is Hayden Prodger in the KTM Crossbow. That thing is absolutely feral in the corners. I imagine here it would take one good start to put him right up there alongside his compatriots at Mercedes. Christian Lebay then, licking his wounds from 6th position, normally has a bit more of a control over the GT4 grid. I think he's just going to be waiting here to see when sort of pen hits paper and make a lot of his moves during the race here. Maybe qualifying just isn't what the Chevrolet's cut out for. Of course, we have 2 hours to see whether or not that theory is correct. Theory will only take you so far, of course. We're back on board then with our leading car, if we can. That being Toby Cyril. So then we watch with bated breath here as we're down through that middle sector. We can see that there is trouble for one of the GT4s. As a matter of fact, it's James Mason, as a matter of fact, in the M4. Was going to start in what I believe was 4th position. Will not be starting that now. He's starting from the pit lane. Very, very bizarre stuff indeed. Back up with our GT3s. Of course, open playing field for both championship standings, so nothing to talk about too much there. This is really where the battle begins. 10 rounds. It'll be taking us all the way into the very start of October, heading into autumn, carrying us over the summer and into the start of the Console Endurance Series Season 2. Bit of summer fun then here in the solo multi-class endurance. Still leading the fray then Toby Cyril. As we get to starting start procedure. Now, of course, it'll take us all the way through the starting straight for the Grand Prix paddock. We'll actually be starting around the corner after turn 1 at La Source. So we'll be on our way down towards Eau Rouge and Radion, as a matter of fact. See, that is a small but mighty grid of GT3s there, backed up by an armada of GT4s. That is going to be a very exciting case study to watch there, the difference between the two. We still watch on board then with Toby Cyril in the GT3s. We would like to advise a mild epilepsy warning for these streams as well. Sometimes there can be graphical errors with the Assetto Corsa Competizione, and with us panning between cameras so much, we feel it necessary to warn you of anyone who may suffer with photosensitive epilepsy that this may not be the perfect stream for you. There will be a cutting between quite a few of the cars on this grid just to try and capture as much action as possible. We feel morally responsible here on TRTN to warn you in advance. So, with 20 cars in all, 10 either side of it, GT3 and GT4 alike, 8 GT3s and 12 GT4s on their way around La Source for the opening round here, the 2025 NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship by Malois Transport. We are but moments away from the start of this exciting championship. Without further ado then, on the long run down to the line, parallel to the GT paddock, let's see how things go in the start of an exciting new chapter of racing here in NLRL. Lining up 40 miles an hour down to the line. Without further ado, we're green and racing here in Spa-Francorchamps for the opening round, and already a blinder start We have a little bit of a delay there in getting the starting proceedings underway. And there we go, timer's up, and O'Killen-Coglu's up into the lead already on Cyril in an ambitious start by McLaren. Little bit of a graphical error, but nothing too major. You can see it's absolute melee, though, for the GT3s down the Kemmel. Cas van Velzen trying to get up into the fray there, up against Cyril and O'Killen-Coglu from third position. He's going to try around the outside at Lecombe and Melmedy. Cyril, though, stern defence, having dropped a position already, is not looking to drop another. Looking further around the field, you can see here's the state of affairs going on inside GT4. Alan Alexander swamped through. Stanov at his rear, Quain up ahead in the Camaro. Dmitry Snai also fallen victim there to Mercedes. Roman Stanov now up ahead of him. Two Ukrainian drivers on the way round turn 10. Very nearly contact between the pair of them. Hayden Prodger chasing down Wesley Kuiper, but has to deal with David Silf on his tail on his way down towards turn 12 at Pouhon. Christian Lebay, though, up ahead of Jake Garrett is one story to be told as well. He makes his way up to 4th and hunting down a podium with Chevrolet. There is Christian Lebay. You can see he's right on the back end of David Silf. Wishful Winnington chat asking, is it difficult keeping up with two cars? Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's trouble for Ben Cheeseman. We saw him on the far edge of the track. Already imminent trouble for the 114. We were following too closely there with the GT4s. I think there's your example, Wishful. Yes, it is very tough keeping up with two classes. Right now, though, that is an ambitious start for GT4. Let's quickly check in, though, with our GT3s, and it's a fight for first on 3 fronts then. Cyril v Van Velzen. As you see in the background, Tyler Vermaak nearly trying his luck on Miras Melrashidov. Though off for Toby Cyril. We're not entirely sure what happened there, but the number 7 has to rejoin the track. Very nearly clips Vermaak on his way round. So that is a very bitter state of affairs for Toby Cyril. We're not entirely sure what went on then, but for Cas van Velzen, he's up to 2nd. Easy free position. Miras Melrashidov eyes up 2nd from now. What is a brand new introduction to 3rd. Right behind him is Tyler Vermaak in the 835. Looking then around, John Prine eyeing up Claudio Cisternas. See up the field at the moment. Ben Cheeseman trying to navigate traffic in GT4. See here, Lebay in hot pursuit. Sandwiched between 2 Mercedes here. Silf in front, Garrett behind on his way up Eau Rouge and Radion. Garrett very, very close indeed. This is for the fight of 4th in class. Silf starts to escape his sight there down the Kemmel. You can see Alan Alexander being shown up by Ben Cheeseman. Gets past both him and Kevin Quain on his comeback drive there from GT3. You can see just how fast they are in a straight line. Cutting up through traffic there like it's rush hour. Now, of course, those GT4s are entitled to fight that position off. Not that necessarily it matters to them. They're more looking at division wins here than overall. It's going to be a bit of a far cry to assume they're capable of it. That's no offence to the drivers. All you need to do is look at the machinery here and see just how much more shove those GT3s have. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can quickly catch on board with the state of affairs from the perspective of the recently downed McLaren of Ben Cheeseman. You can see cutting his way through traffic. It's going to be ambitious for him to make his way back up into the GT3 field so early, but with plenty of time left to play with, he's got a lot of time to make up for what just went on there. Still not entirely clued in on what went on for the GT3 number 114. He's already up past Christian Lebay. He's in 11th overall. 8th in class, though. Not been the start he's been after. An hour and 56 minutes, though. Plenty of time to claw a good result back in. We'll be catching up with Cheeseman then later on. See there, Silf is right alongside him. Then that was 3rd in GT4. Next will be Prodger, who's forged quite a solid gap now away from the Mercedes. Now going to have to start considering his options here and defending against Christian Lebay, hunting him down for a podium for Chevrolet. Now the GT4s were advised they can hold their racing line. If a GT3 has to make its way through, it's its responsibility to make a safe move on them. So just remember that for later. See here from the perspective of David Silf in the AMG. Just a little too far away then from 2nd place in class. You can see further up the road there. Just making their way down towards turn 1. The leading Mercedes for GT4. That being Wesley Kuiper. Garrett and Lebay potentially getting into a skirmish soon as well. Here's Jake Garrett, number 116. Behind them there, Kevin Crane and Alan Alexander very close to one another as well, just to note. And also right behind Alan Alexander, Roman Zhdanov and Dmitry Snai. So very close stuff in GT4. We'll be getting back on with our GT3s as that pack is really starting to open the taps and get away. Number 35 of Killing Koglu now leads, after what was a very strong start, must I say as well. Alan Alexander then side by side with Kevin Quain. We're watching from the perspective of Roman Zhdanov, who's got Dmitry Snai for company. You can see this is where the Ginettas start to falter. Zhdanov looking for the inside on their way down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. We're on board with Roman Zhdanov, and that's all gone pear-shaped for him there. Let's get a look on the replays, try and figure out exactly what went on for him. And that does not appear to be the stream we're after. So it appears, sadly, that our instant replays will not be available for the duration of the stream. And this is the problem with OBS. Nonetheless, sadly, that's going to be something we'll have to take off for the time being. We'll be trying to get that fixed later down the line. We did have to do a bunch of alterations for OBS over the course of the last 24 hours to make sure that it was working in time for the stream. Sadly, that seems to be something we've overlooked, so no instant replays for this stream. So, having to live in the here and now then. Toby Cyril now back up into the fight, hunting down Mir Ismail Rashidov for 4th position. Tyler Vermack up ahead in 3rd. Behind them, Kieran Rodd down in 6th position. Alan Alexander with Ginetta. Stay on board with them. Caught firmly in the mix here in a fight for Division 6. Up against Kevin Quain there, the defending Chevrolet. Alexander trying for the inside and the Ginetta, then David versus Goliath on their way down through the bus stop chicane for Division 6. A little bit of contact between the pair of them on the exit of turn 19, but Alexander pins it in there past turn 20, up into 6th in category. There you can see the Chevrolet opens the taps and is right back with him on our way to turn 1. And Dmitry Snai tries for the inside there in the fellow Ginetta. Number 57 doesn't get the move pinned in. We do have yellow flags up the field here. And off for the number 113, that being Kyle Jenkins, in trouble on the exit of Eau Rouge and Radion. So that is a yellow flag advisory in effect. Kevin Crane, you can see, is just absolutely mauling these Ginettas here. But Dmitry Snai, despite that speed disadvantage in the straight lines, is sticking very, very closely to the number 706. Alan Alexander then is having to defend a Division 6th position in what was a very solid move by the number 26 Ginetta. We're back in the green flag conditions for the time being, though, on our way through Lacombe and Melmedy. Catch up with him later on. There's Dmitry Snai eyeing up the back end of Kevin Quain. I think just a little too far away to be lodging a move there for Division 7th. Hayden Proger now 1.1 seconds away from Wesley Kuiper in the lead of GT4. David Silf 1.8 seconds behind. So still very, very close, as a matter of fact, between the two GT4s. Running up front, but getting a look in GT3, it's a broadly different story as the gap continues to open between Cas van Velzen and Ilkay Killing-Koglu, the leading McLaren, then opening the taps up against Ford and Lexus. Here with nearly 10 minutes in. Yeah, it's very sad that we lost the instant replays, one of our shining features here, but we had to, genuinely, it was about 40 to 50 minute process that we just had to basically clean out the entire drive to make sure nothing was going wrong, and sadly that appears to have reset some of the code on the instant replay. Nonetheless though, we'll carry on. 1 minute 50, 35 left to go. What, 1 hour 50? Is it at all obvious to anyone in chat that the Red Bull has ran out? See here with Tyler Vermack, 0.8 seconds from Cas van Velzen. Keep a close eye on those two if that gets any closer. You can see Mir Ismail Rashidov looks to be going potentially toe-to-toe with Toby Cyril on our way down through turn 10 for fourth position. Let's stay on board with these two then. Looks to be an exciting battle on our hands here for fourth position. Toby Cyril trying his luck there, still just hugging the back end of the Porsche. Runs a little bit wide out through turn 12. Toby Cyril still clawing at him on his way down towards campus. Turns 13 and 14. The BMW trying to get later on the brakes there. A very, very tall order to try and outbrake a Porsche in its prime territory. Out through turn 14 we go then to turn 15 at Stavelot. It's very sharp snapbacks between the pair of them on their way to Stavelot corner. Then the curb of Paul Frere. It's neck and neck almost between the pair on their way through turn 16. Very, very close stuff indeed. We'll be checking in with the GT4s in a moment's time. Right now, though, we're watching the fight for fourth in GT3. Up towards Blanchimont we go now. This is where the BMW is able to open the taps here. It's got better straight line speed than the Porsche. On its way through turn 18, I think Rashidov may just have enough momentum. Cyril, though, he's eyeing up the inside. Can he commit to a lunge from that far back? No, not this time around. So out through turn 19, you can see he's going for a more aggressive apex, so perhaps even lining himself up for a move at La Source. That could have been solidified almost had it not been for a very, very sudden catch there by Mirosmail Rashidov on his way down towards La Source. Cyril still stuck in behind. Not an awful lot he can do at this time. Let's watch over the rear view of Rashidov. You can see just hiding behind that rear spoiler on the Porsche is the number 7 that started this race from pole, lost that down through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, and then ran into some trouble on the end of that opening lap, but is already back into the fight. Up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. You can see he's just creeping up on him now as we hit the Kemmel Straight out through turn 6. Very, very close stuff between the pair indeed. And extra to note as well, Van Velzen v Vermaak is definitely short to kick off as we head into Le Combe and Melmedy. We'll be checking with that in a moment's time. We're still watching that fight for fourth. Cyril still chasing down Rashidov on his way out of turn 9. Watching ahead, you can see that fight going on for second place. And watching behind, you can see what is the current precedent for the fight of fourth. Down through campus, you can see that gap is getting very, very claustrophobically small between those two up in second and third. It's the same story though in the row right behind them in that fight for fourth position. Let's just quickly check in then with the rest of the field. Okay, Killinkoglu still leads the fray in the McLaren. You can see a little bit of desync there. I don't want to speak too early on anything servo issues wise. Kyle Jenkins on his way round campus down towards Stavelot, turn 15. He's currently 8th overall. Quickly checking back in with the 111 and the 222. You can see Kuiper and Proger separated by 0.9 of a second. That just drops out to past a second out through Pouan at turn 12. Down in GT4, Mercedes versus KTM. Further down behind them, we get a look here. Roman Zdanov swamped in the fight for not for joint 8th, but for class 8th position in GT4. In front of him there, Dimitri Snai. Behind him, James Mason and Kevin Quain. Checking in with Toby Cyril. He's dropped behind massively there from Mirosmail Rashidov. And the last time we saw them, that gap was down to about 3 to 2/10 of a second. As a matter of fact, we need to get on board there with what looks to be kicking off to be side-by-side action. From the perspective of Cas Van Velzen, Tyler Vermaak trying to get around the outside at Le Combe and Melmedy. Is it possible between the two? It's very close. He gets squeezed there on his way through Le Combe, then out through Melmedy. Van Velzen's down to third, Vermaak's up to second. You can see that has invited Rashidov all the way back in. Let's stay on board with Cas Van Velzen, now fighting for second in this race. We're only a quarter of an hour in and it has already been eventful up in both GT3 and down in GT4. Right now, this is a three-way fight for second position. Rashidov looks to pick up the scraps of any kind of mistake made by Van Velzen. Van Velzen's hoping for a mistake out of Vermaak. Vermaak's just hoping not to make a mistake on his way down towards campus. Van Velzen trying his luck, but he backs out of it. Still on his tail is Rashidov. He's sliding his way out of campus. That is some real gusto by Cas Van Velzen to keep a good control on that Mustang. Now on our way out of the curb of Paul Frere. Rashidov still in hot pursuit. Van Velzen in hot pursuit of Vermaak. Down through Blanchimont. Now this is where the Mustang and the Lexus have got superior straight line speed over the Porsche, but the Porsche is firmly in the slipstream there. He's just able to hold on for dear life and hope he doesn't fall off the train on his way down through turn 19 and 20. Little bump over the sausage curbs, then Van Velzen emerges still in third, but by a closing margin to the car in fourth position as Mir-Ismail Rashidov is eyeing up a move down into La Source. Does he commit to it though is the real question? No, not this time around. Van Velzen takes centre mass of the road. He's playing defensively. Vermaak is just having to try and get away, but he's trying, but the Mustang is still with him. Now as we exit turn 2, we'll stay on board here from the perspective of Cas Van Velzen up through turns 3 through 5, up the Eau Rouge and Radion hill climb. It is incredibly close. You can see just hovering around the back end there is Mir-Ismail Rashidov in the number 21. And this is a bit of a slipstream train now we're seeing down the Kemmel. So I think I may have figured out what the problem was with the instant replay system. We do want to just quickly try. Can I press this button and just try this out? Ah, there we go. See, fantastic. Okay, it does work. I figured out what the problem was. Because I'm, you know, obviously here on TRTN, I am a genius. No mistaking in that. My genius knows no bounds. But my Stream Deck does know bounds. And when we cleaned the hard drive, it messed up all the multifunctions. So, what that means is this £149 piece of streaming equipment isn't working right now. Oh, God. Oh, the game's a little bit gone for me. And so too is my mind. Completely different argument, though. Completely different argument. Vermaak still in second. Van Velzen pursuing from third. And Rashidov from fourth. So that's good. We have the replays back. Fantastic. Not complaining about that. Won't complain about that. Wish I could have activated it on, you know, perhaps the dedicated PDA I bought off the internet for £149 sterling with a gift card that I got for my birthday. Besides the point. Really wish that would have worked, but that's fine. We can code it back in. No worries about that. Van Velzen, though, is trying for a move on the inside. Vermaak holds him off. You can see more that defensive masterclass performance that we've seen out of both drivers. Now, this time, swinging in favour of Tyler Vermaak. He seems a lot more comfortable now with Lexus, and of course, we've joked at length on the Sunday League about Vermaak's many exploits around the field. I think off the top of my head, he went... I could be wrong about this. Ferrari, Ford, Aston Martin. Oh, gosh. McLaren. Yeah, he went to McLaren. He did go to McLaren. Then BMW, then Honda. Now Lexus. Well, he went then back to Aston Martin, then Lexus. And that's why we introduced the great TRTN change poll. Every time he does do that, which I don't think he will because this looks to be the most confident choice for him. But every time he does do it now this season, I will be buying one beer, drinking it at the end of the season live. It's a little fun game we've got going on here. It's not meant to be at his own expense. It's, you know, it's just funny to see. He's a man of many faces, Tyler Vermaak. He does like to peruse and choose, and this seems to be the golden recipe now. I think this is what he's been searching for, the magnum opus, as it were, that is the 835 Lexus. As right now, Cas Van Velzen is losing steam to him, as a matter of fact, looking at it here, looks to be angling himself more to have to defend third position off from the approaching Mir-Ismail Rashidov. So we'll catch up with Van Velzen in a while. We'll have a look now back into GT4. Just quickly checking here. There's Rashidov, 0.4 of a second. I have to speak the King's English for that one. To Cas Van Velzen. We'll catch up with them later. That's Claudio Cisternas, Ilkay Kilinkoglu, Kyle Jenkins, Ben Cheeseman, here. GT4, David Silf in the 3rd in class at the moment, 10th overall, chasing down Hayden Prodger, but that gap has massively opened up now between Prodger and Kuiper. Whatever Wesley Kuiper seems to have done, it is working in that Mercedes right now. Looking towards the back of the top 5, Jake Garrett holds on to 5th, but in front of him on what has been definitely a fantastic recovery since his qualifying performance, up 2 positions from race start, Christian LeBay in the number 119 Chevrolet Camaro. There you can see the class leader in GT4, Wesley Kuiper, has imperial control of the field right now. He's up by 2.2 seconds to the dark horse that is the Caterham, the 222 of Hayden Prodger behind him. Kuiper gunning for gold then. We'll catch up with them later on. Quickly checking in here. Toby Cyril has been one of the many talks of today's paddock, as he's been on the comeback drive since his incident down at the bus stop chicane on lap 1. He's in 5th at the moment and 5th overall. You can see there is a myriad of traffic ahead of him there, both GT3 and GT4. Let's see if we can actually get a gander as to what's going on there. Among it is Cas van Velzen and Tyler Vermaak, but Mir Ismail Rashidov gets the leg up on Vermaak, up into a surprised 3rd position there. Very well placed by Rashidov. Vermaak still right on his tail though, gunning for 3rd, down through turn 10. He's going to have to try something very ambitious here. Maybe a late apex on the horizon. Does the Porsche cover him off? Yes, he does. Very well played by Mir Ismail Rashidov there. Tyler Vermaak punching the air in the 835. Just one moment of traffic seems to have rattled him a little bit there, but he's still plenty of time to play with, 1 hour and 38 minutes to be precise here in today's race. You got to hand it to them there. That was very tactical by Mir Ismail Rashidov. On his first appearance here in NLRL, is making a very good name for himself in the number 21 Porsche. Playing chestnut checkers here. He's finding his openings and he is absolutely lunging it for it. But can you defend from a driver like Tyler Vermaak? That is the real question then, resting on the mind of Mir Ismail Rashidov. We'll stay on board then. What is the growing fight for 3rd position? Watching on board at the moment, we have Tyler Vermaak, number 835 with Lexus, just lost out that position amidst the traffic down the Kemmel Straight on this very lap. That gap between himself and the 2nd place driver, Cas van Velzen, who he was fighting with not too long ago, is starting to separate as now he prioritises his fight back up to the podium against the number 21 of Mir Ismail Rashidov. Vermaak looking for the inside. He's trying to get inside Rashidov's head here, but you are working against what appears to be a bit of a master tactician here. He knows the game a little too well, and that's not going to work by the looks of it. Vermaak will actually have to commit to ascend on the inside, and he is too far away by the looks of it to have that wrapped up so early. You can see though, running into more GT4 traffic, that is Kevin Quain in front. Now side by side with Rashidov. Blue flags are shown for Quain. He'll be out of the way by the time Vermaak comes past. On our way up to Eau Rouge and Radion, you can see just how broadly different the handling is between GT4 and GT3 there. As you can see over the span of what is only 2 corners, he was caught up. Well, he was overtaken by Vermaak and then caught up by Toby Cyril, who just rockets his way out of turn 6. You see right now, though, we're going to have to cut away from Vermaak as Rashidov now eyes up a move into 2nd place. He already conquered 3rd. He is on the warpath here for 2nd place. You got to hand it to him on his debut here in NLRL. He is really making quite the impression. Stanov in front of him there in GT4. Just works his way on the inside and he's up and away out of turn 10 into turn 11. Van Velzen is, well, I imagine, sweating a little bit nervous there in the number 420. I mean, I wasn't expecting this just as much as they are, and Cyril and Vermaak are right with each other at the moment. That could be a battle to discuss. 0.7 of a second actually the gap at the moment between Vermaak and Cyril. Right now we're back on board with what is growing, in my opinion, to be a potential look up here of driver of the day, Mir Ismail Rashidov on his debut. See up front, Ilkay Kilinkoglu's in traffic. He's just gone past James Mason. Dimitri Snai will be next with the Ginetta. You can see there just peeking around turn 15 from the perspective of the Porsche of Mir Ismail Rashidov. Up through turn 16 we go. And this is where things start to get, dare I say, a little bit spicy for our drivers up in GT3 and for GT4 for that matter, because they are going to be absolutely traumatised for the next hour and 35 minutes, and it's going to be fantastic to see. Down towards turn 19 and 20. Snight is absolutely swamped in there. Vermac right around him. And we saw Cyril run wide through turn 19. He's not happy with that at all. Let's cut away then from Rashidov. We check around the grid again. Koglu still leads the charge. Van Velzen closing the gap then. Koglu scrubbed time during his cut through of traffic. But Van Velzen taking a very wide run through turn 1. That's going to sully his chances this early on. Still an hour and 34 left to go. Right now, we can see from the perspective of David Silf, still on podium for GT4. Prodger in front of him there by just about a second. The titular KTM still running from the Mercedes. Kuiper is continuing to open that gap up. It's about 2.1 seconds at the moment between himself and Prodger. Strategy may need to be on the side of Prodger here for him to get back out in front of Kuiper, because pound for pound, that AMG has got more to give than the 2-litre inside that KTM. Here's Toby Cyril looking at the chaos erupting in front of him. Alan Alexander directly in front of him there. Tyler Vermac up the road and able to get away then on his pursuit of Mir Ismail Rashidov, who himself is in pursuit of Cas Van Velzen, who himself is in pursuit of Ilkay Koglu. The introduction of these GT4s into the mix may have just brought the GT3 fight back into contention after nearly 30 minutes of racing here. On what looked like a very confident gap to be opened up by Ilkay Koglu. Let's try and catch on board with him here. So we just quickly take a peruse through the GT4 field, which has spread out a ways since the race start. Cannot say the same though for GT3. They are still right with each other here, owing to such incredible competitive capability. You can see side by side there, Christian Lebay. Oh, big snap by Cas Van Velzen. Did you catch that on the exit of turn 15? That was very, very hair-raising for him there. We were watching with the number 420, and we saw there Koglu side by side with the 119, Christian Lebay. Just as he exits there, a bit too much throttle, nearly canes it into Lebay. Now, fair play to Cas Van Velzen, but all of that has accidentally brought him back into that fight. I'd say more realistically for second here. It would be for third for Rashidov with Vermac right on his tail. But for Cas Van Velzen, he's now found himself, because of that snap of oversteer, in a vulnerable position here, still amongst the GT4 traffic on his way towards turn 1, with Mir Ismail Rashidov and Tyler Vermac breathing down his neck here. A three-way fight for second is back on the table. You got to hand it to these two. They have been inseparable over this quarter of the race. Rashidov even trying his luck there up through Oruj and Radion. Now, it's remarkable to see someone control the car that close in the dirty air of another driver up such a tumultuous section of the track like Oruj and Radion. That takes some serious guts to make possible. Right now, in between Van Velzen and the lead of this race, courtesy of Ilkay Koglu, is David Silf. He's on the podium for GT4, so this is really two worlds collide now. We're up past that top 5. Van Velzen absolutely right against the ragged edge here, properly giving it the Hail Mary solution out through Melmedy. Down through Rivage we go, turn 10, still sliding his way out. He's giving it 110%. If he does go on to lose second position, know that he did not go down without a fight, but he has really come out, both arms swinging here on the competition. Prodger's right in his way, and he has to run him wide there. Prodger won't be particularly happy. Looking behind there, still out wide when Rashidov and Vermac enter the fray. Looking up front, you can see Koglu just out ahead of the GT4 leader. That's Wesley Kuiper between first and second of GT3. This is going to become quite the mind melter from a logistics standpoint to keep track of all of this. What you are looking at right now is second in GT3 alongside first in GT4, but 9th overall. You can see, though, that is the broadside difference between GT4 and GT3 as Rashidov and Vermac come soaring on through to the back end of Van Velzen out through Blanchemont. It's very close. We may have to get on board with a battle for third here because Rashidov could be vulnerable. We'll watch from behind, or from ahead, I should say, watching over the back end of Cas Van Velzen as he holds the line through turn 19 and 20. This is remarkable stuff. A short grid though it may be, only 8 cars in GT3 for this round of the championship, but it is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a boring grid. This has been absolute cinema from start to finish right now. You can see there, 3 cars, 3 broadly different exits of La Source, but they're still absolutely dead set between each other. They're barely anything. You could stick your arm out through the windscreen and have a chance here of touching the rear spoiler. Admittedly, with this, you'd have a pretty long arm, but point withstands. Up through turn 6. Rashidov's in the slipstream. Could it be a move up to second then? On the horizon for the number 21. Cas van Velzen has got to move defensively here. He's forcing Rashidov to the left-hand side. Who goes last of the late breakers? Van Velzen holds his nerve. Up through Lacombe. Has to cut over the curb there a little bit. Rashidov still right with Vermaak on his tail. Out through Melmedy. Getting the benefit though out through turn 9. Just slowing them up a bit is Cas van Velzen. Gets better exit through turn 9. How does that carry into turn 10 and 11? This is a fantastic fight we're seeing here inside the podium. Down through turn 11, corner with no name, out towards Poo on turn 12. He's held his nerve with razor precise precision here. And fair play to Cas van Velzen. It's a small grid, but the pressure can crush a man under these conditions. You can see how close things get there out through campus between the Lexus and the Porsche in 3rd and 4th. Mirosmel Rashidov and Tyler Vermaak. Toby Cyril, by the way, all of this pushing and shoving is inviting Toby Cyril back in, so he is not out of this fight. We've already seen the first of our pit stops there. Wesley Kuiper's in the 111. And that is a bit of a concern. I will say that because he's actually preemptively in the pits. Something is wrong with the 111 who was leading this race. It is now handed over, by the looks of things, to I'm a little bit confused, as a matter of fact. We will have to get an update on that. We're still on board with Cas van Velzen and Mirosmel Rashidov and Tyler Vermaak in their conquest of 2nd position, but we want to get an update on what on earth went on. We just seen going into the pits there was the, I believe that's the 835. Tyler Vermaak is into the pits then, amongst the first of our pit stops. Having a look then. So yes, Wesley Kuiper took a normal pit stop by the look of it there. You can see it's counted for 1. He's took a minimum 25-second pit stop. Now, it is mandated you take fuel on board. Tyres are totally optional in that endeavour. We're still watching. This is a razor-thin fight right now between Van Velzen and Rashidov on our exit of Radion. Down through turn 6. This is really some David v Goliath type stuff. That Porsche, bless it, is just not the machine to be in a straight line, especially toe-to-toe with the 7th generation Ford Mustang. But in the corners, he's catching. This is a fantastic dichotomy to study. It's cornering these straight lines. It's power versus precision. Van Velzen can give you that in droves, and so too, by the looks of it, can Mirosmel Rashidov. We'll catch up with these two in a moment's time. They're still fighting out for 2nd position. Take a look here. That's Tyler Vermaak on the very long run down the pits, finally coming to a stop then at the back of the GT3 field. But now he's going to have the job at hand of getting through the GT4 traffic, and now it's not particularly easy, especially considering that those GT4s will be all fighting for position still. So let's get a quick gander here at what's going on inside GT4. This is Alan Alexander, 5th in class at the moment. That would have been 6th before Kuiper's pit stop run. He's yet to take either of his mandated pit stops. Dimitri Snai, 7th in class. Hayden Prodger then with KTM leading the fray. You can see it is not a far gap at all, despite everything that has gone on in the last 35 minutes of racing here in the opening half of this endurance race to keep the GT4s apart from one another. There is not a big gap at all between Silf and Prodger. Now, with Kuiper soon to make his way back into the fight when these guys take their pit stop, their first of 2, as a matter of fact, then we can have another conversation on that. Right now, though, let's check back in with what the state of affairs was. A war on all fronts back in GT3. And looking at it, they have not gone anywhere at the moment in terms of that distance. It's still razor thin between Rashidov and Van Velzen. Now we'll stay on board the perspective of the attacking car then inside that top three. Miroslav Rashidov, who has very, very much so impressed me today and is definitely in the lookings for driver of the day on what has been a phenomenal drive, just full of action. He's not let off since. He's not pulled any punches. He knows precisely when to pick the fight. And another likely candidate, I would say, for driver of the day, for at least GT3, we'll have that discussion of GT4 later on, but for GT3, I'd say you can see those two options, right? Well, you see the three options, as a matter of fact. You know what? 4 options. Have a look at the top 4 for me real quick. Kilinkoglu, Van Velzen, Rashidov, Cyril. Have any of these drivers had a boring drive? No. Kilinkoglu, as a matter of fact, secured the lead from lap 1. It is very tough to pick. I would say if you had to narrow it down, depending on what Cyril can do in the next hour and 24 minutes, he'd be in that. Right now, I would say it's Rashidov. Not an unrealistic expectation to set there because he has had a phenomenal race. He's been properly scrapping it between the drivers inside the top 5. And this is his first race here in NLRL, and he's already wowing expectations. So you've got to hand it to him there. And he's doing so in a Porsche. How many drivers do you know in this division of esports on Xbox can do that in a Porsche? Very, very few. So, looking back into GT4, let's see what's going on here. As that gap maintains a sort of low 1 to very high 0 gap between Sylph and Proger. These two have been phenomenal, as too has Wesley Kuiper in GT4 as well. You can see behind Jake Garrett just being overtaken by Kyle Jenkins on our way down through campus. I'd say for GT4, you're spoiled for choice, really. One driver that I would say has definitely had a very solid race so far would be Christian Lebay. He's gone up 2 positions from the race start. He didn't have the best of qualifying sessions in that Camaro on his first race this season. His first time in the Camaro in NLRL. Of course, he's gone elsewhere. He's conquered other fields with that Camaro. But he's had a very, very solid start. From 6th up to 4th at the moment. 4:13 as well. We've just seen James Mason's got a drive-through penalty. That could possibly be for track limits. So that's a mighty shame for him there. Rashidov's into the pit lane, we've just heard as well. Number 21's gone in for his first of 2 pit stops. We're watching here with Toby Silva has been given the green light then to hunt down Cas Van Velzen. Now that the gap has opened up between himself and Rashidov out of the picture, he's got a clear line of sight. You can see he has not wasted any time with the opportunity he's been presented here. Before he gets into the pit lane, you can see the tenacity in his drive. You can see he's saying to himself, before I hit the pits, I'm getting that position. There is absolute commitment in his drive there. Proper conviction by the number 7. Let's stay on board with Toby Cyril because this is a properly reignited drive we're seeing here from today's pole sitter in GT3. He may have been down and out in the opening 40 minutes here, but as he gets down towards the start of his first look into the pits, first of 2 before the end of today's race, he is properly back in swinging here. We'll watch on board with the number 7 from the dash cam view here, the BMW. You can see whatever he's doing, it's working because Van Velzen, in his efforts to defend from Rashidov, may have done his tyres in here. So both of these drivers will be having a gander at the pit lane very, very shortly. And I think that's the same sentiment at the moment carried by Ilkay Kilinkoglu. Admittedly, he's had a much more relaxed race than most. He's been sort of sitting pretty in first there by about 3 to 4 seconds on average. These, the positions there in behind him on that podium have been fought for on a river of blood and oil. Van Velzen, though, looks to be gunning for the pit lane. So yeah, there goes Cas Van Velzen. Toby Cyril will be back up to 2nd. But after strategy takes place after the first wave of pit stops, where does Cyril reside? Of course, we still have to consider Miroslav Rashidov in the mix here, who went into the pits not too long ago. We've got 1 hour and 20 minutes left to go. Let's take a look around the field again. James Mason re-emerges then onto the track after his drive-through penalty, currently in 9th in GT4 and 18th overall. That makes 10th there after recent changes. And ahead of him by 9.4 seconds is John Prime. Behind him is Wesley Kuiper, catching up after his first pit stop. Now, in a track like Spa, the timing of your pit stops has to be absolutely frame perfect in order to get the most out of your strategy because of just how long it takes to get to your pit box. We're not in a grid large enough to use the Grand Prix paddock that you see during the Belgian Grand Prix. You know, you pop in, you get onto your jacks, you get the tyres off, you refuel the car, what have you, you're back off the jacks with new tyres on your car, off you go out of the pits, out through just the exit of turn 1. We don't have the luxury of that. As a matter of fact, let's quickly catch on board with Hayden Prodger just to give you an insight as to what we're dealing with here. So we're watching on board with Hayden Prodger, who provisionally led GT4 there in the first pit stop absence of Wesley Kuiper, who will likely be passing him up from the GT4 category. You can see we've gone completely past this, so it's as if you're taking a drive through in Formula 1. We're not exiting here. You keep coming all the way down, and you're doing all of this at about, what is it, 50 kilometers an hour? It's about 30, 40-ish miles an hour. Very slow. You see, he's just having a cruise there, and you get a perfect panoramic view of everyone passing you as you make your way to the pit lane. We're still going, still going, still going, still going down the pit lane. This is the problem that the drivers will suffer with, and they're going to continue to suffer with this over the next hour and 19 minutes, is that those 2 pit stops you've got to take, even if it's just for fuel, have to be perfectly timed. Capital P. Perfectly timed. There, finally stopped in the pit lane. So that gives you some example how long that takes just to get to the pit lane. We see John Prine now making the infamous pit lane run. You can see it is aloof with cars right now. Having a look on our overall charts just to see the myriad of cars on their way in. Ilkay Kilinkoglu, Toby Cyril, Hayden Prodger, Dimitri Snai, Roman Zdanov, Kevin Quinn, John Prine. Wesley Kuiper's not in the pit lane, and he's going to pick up a ton of places on his way back up to the top of GT4. James Mason also in the pit lane as well. See, just car after car after car there on this grid. Van Veltsen is out after his first pit stop. And behind him, Tyler Vermaak and Miroslav Rashidov by about 3 seconds. So this is what I'm talking about. It's the importance of good pit timing there, because he's away from that fight. He doesn't have to worry about that at all. He can continue to rake in more positions before the end of this current stint, before he goes into the pits for the last time this race. That's not a luxury Tyler Vermaak has right now, because he's got Miroslav Rashidov breathing down his neck for control of, what is that, 7th position of GT3. We'll stay on board with these two, because I get the feeling this fight has only just begun between these two. This is the defensive fight right now for 7th position for Tyler Vermaak. Miroslav Rashidov chasing him down with reckless fervour on his way out of turn 18 at Blanchimont. These two absolutely rocketing their way down towards the bus stop chicane at turn 19 and 20. This is the imminent fear that Vermaak has to deal with on every single hard-braking corner like that. And it's going to be the same problem he finds on his way down towards turn 1. Is that Porsche, pound for pound, one of the best machines for braking. And I think Miroslav Rashidov is acutely aware of that, because he's gone straight for the inside, down at La Source, and covered Vermaak off. He can't push his way back through. And Rashidov gets the position up. Getting a look at that on the replay then, on our way down Eau Rouge and Radion at the moment. We're still quickly watching on the live monitors here to see if anything does change up. A stop-go 30-second penalty just awarded there for John Prine. What a move then by Rashidov. Showcasing one of the best strengths then of that Porsche. And downfall here for Tyler Vermaak. He picks up a drive-through penalty. So that has quickly gone wrong from there. That was up through Eau Rouge and Radion. That was just one infraction too many for the 835. The South African driver will be beside himself there on what has been an otherwise very promising race. That's been waylaid by a detrimental drive-through penalty. On any other track, you could bounce back from that. Spa is not so forgiving. So that's definitely something he's going to have to strategize against now. He may not be looking at a race win today, but the bottom line, he wants a top 5. So we'll catch up with Vermaak later on. We take a look here. The car just passed him. Miroslav Rashidov up to the top 5. Bear in mind, still taking his chances here after that first stint. Claudio Cisternas may be within some luck here with John Prine only 5.9 seconds at the field with a stop-go 30-second penalty. Could find his way up to 11th in class in GT4. It's not been the best of days for McLaren right now. They gained 2 kilos on balance and performance. In the hands of Cisternas, he's just not been able to extract 100% of the performance out of the 570S. Rather begrudgingly so. But that's not the same problem experienced by its bigger brother, the 720S GT3 Evo, in the hands of Ilkay Akilinkoglu. He's provisionally in second place right now. The number 61 of Kieran Rod leads after going long on his first pit stop run. He'll be into the pits likely by the end of this lap, giving Akilinkoglu the lead once more. With an hour and 14 minutes left to go. Behind him there you can see the rest of the podium comprised of Cas van Veltsen and Toby Cyril. After that, number 61 comes into the pits, of course, that will be the podium by the way it stands at the moment. So as we approach the halfway mark of the race, let's get a quick gander here before strategy waylays the results any further. Kieran Rod leads, but with one more pit stop before he's down to his last available. He'll be back behind drivers such as Van Veltsen and Akilinkoglu. So Akilinkoglu looking to take provisional lead and then provisional podium for this next stint coming for Van Veltsen and Cyril. Rashidov in provisional 4th, currently 5th. For Mac, serving his drive-through is going to drop quite a few positions, both in category and potentially even... Actually, it's a bit of a far cry to say that. I was going to say potentially even to the GT4s. They are 2 laps away from our GT3 drivers. No imminent threat of losing that out today. Ben Cheeseman and Kyle Jenkins then rounding out the last of our GT3s. But Cheeseman will be up with a brand new position to his name. We'll be up to 6th, and Jenkins will be up to 7th, whilst Vermac serves that drive-through penalty. Actually, could get very close here. No, Jenkins there up past him. Vermac down to last in GT3. Has got quite a way to fight things back before his next pit stop, so he's going to have to definitely time this one very, very cheekily. And Kieran Rod is into the pits then, giving Ilkay Akilinkoglu the green light to come and hunt down the race lead as the number 61, the last of our first pitters. That's going to shake things up. Then looking in GT4, Wesley Kuiper has a commanding lead at the moment over David Silf to make it a Mercedes 1-2. As over the course of that first pit stop run, Hayden Prodger loses out position to Silf. He's in 3rd in class, 11th overall. Behind him, Jake Garrett in 4th. Christian Lebay to round out the top 5 for GT4 in classification. Then Alan Alexander and Dimitri Snai. A promising story of 2 then for Janetta to make 6th and 7th position ahead of Roman Stanov in 8th, Kevin Quain 9th, James Mason in 10th. And John Prine in 11th, Claudio Cisternas 12th in category 20th overall. So let's get back on board then with Ilkay Akilinkoglu as he's on the precipice of taking the lead here of this race here in Spa in the opening round of the solo multi-class endurance. It has been a very, very promising start to say the least. While yes, it's been a smaller grid than we were expecting for GT3, I can hardly say that I'm disappointed. I mean, it's been fantastic. It's been cinema from these drivers. And it's quality over quantity is the saying, isn't it? Up we go then, up Eau Rouge and Radion. Kieran Rod then dropping away from the podium. There to look at your new podium then. Ilkay Akilinkoglu, Cas van Veltsen and Toby Cyril. Back to the top 3 then for Toby Cyril. And still a ways work before he's back leading the race. Miroslav Rashidov then sandwiched at the moment between 2 GT4s by the looks of it. And that depends on if the 413 can get out ahead of number 61. No, Kieran Rod is out on track, so Rod will rejoin the track in 5th position. So very well played there by the 61, I must say. By the looks of it, let's see if we can catch on board with the number 61, that being Kieran Rod. Yes, does re-enter the track here in 5th position, so very well played. It may not have been where he's expecting to end up, but he's not going to argue with the top 5 finish, I don't imagine. It has been a very promising show by Ford so far. And even more so for fellow Ford, that being Cas van Veltsen. We can go and find him on track here. You can see Akilinkoglu leading. See a story of Mercedes here. I mean, it has been quite a dominant performance inside that top 5 by the AMG GT4 squadron. The 111, the 443 and the 116 all inside that top 5. Kuiper, Silf and Garrett. Sandwiched in between the Mercs there, Hayden Prodger on a very promising prospect in today's race. Momentarily led GT4 as well. So let's quickly catch on board here. If we can catch them. See the story of the Chevrolets here. Christian Lebay just finding himself snugly in the middle of the standings for GT4 at the moment. He knows he'll be able to have much more competitive drives when we get to Mount Panorama in the next round at the end of the month. And I do thoroughly look forward to seeing that. As a sort of growing supercars fan, nothing seems more enticing to me than seeing a couple of these Chevrolets bomb it around Mount Panorama. That is going to be a very fun race at the end of this month. Right now, though, in the here and now at Spa-Francorchamps, it has been, I would say, a pretty solid race. We back on board then with Cas van Velzen. He's only 0.8 of a second away from Koglu as we hit GT4 traffic yet again. Could there be the opening Van Velzen has waited for all this time to come and have a go at the race lead? But bear in mind, this is a double-edged sword, because if he gets held up at any point, like right now where he's held up by Roman Stanov, that could invite Toby Cyril to come and have a go for the position he's currently holding on to. We could be seeing an imminent fight for second place. As a matter of fact, yes, we are seeing that fight start to unfold here, as with a much better run, Toby Cyril is getting on the offensive, but Van Velzen gets up past Dimitri Snai in GT4, as to De Cyril on our way round Melmedy. Lacombe and Melmedy, should say. 0.4 of a second between Cyril and Van Velzen. They're firmly back into that fight for second. Can see perhaps what the priorities were in the pit lane between Van Velzen and Cyril, because he's just got a little bit, by the looks of it, more grip to play with. Very nearly clipped Alan Alexander on his way round campus. That nearly ended up being double trouble courtesy of Toby Cyril. Down towards Stavelot, you can see that gap has dropped massively. We are potentially looking at the fight for the race lead here in GT3. The GT4s have played a very nice hand indeed to Cas van Velzen in giving him the opportunity, as he's 0.6 of a second away, now half a second from Ilkay Koglu. What can the leading McLaren do then? You stay on board with Van Velzen, sandwiched firmly in between a story of two fights. One for the position he holds on to, one for the position in front. The ultimate question therein, by the end of this stint, who comes out on top then in GT3? We are keeping a close eye on what's going on in GT4 to give you any updates on that. Right now, it's still quite close between the two Mercedes leading the charge. Kuiper and Silf. Roger still in third in class. Right now, though, our priority set on the fight for the lead overall in this race today. Up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon we go. Cas van Velzen has rode the ragged edge of that Mustang for nearly an hour straight. Very little respite has been found by the 420. He has been swinging both arms, firing on all pistons on his way down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. Now has a very good chance to try and have a go for the lead of this race. On his way out of Melmedy, 1.1 seconds to Cyril. He's nearly double, as a matter of fact, is double the gap from Cyril that he is to Koglu. The cracks potentially starting to show there in the strategy. Did Koglu go for new tyres on his first pit stop, or has he just gone for fuel? Well, if any of you have watched any movies, you know, no tyres, just gas doesn't always work out. Out through Pouhon we go then. Turn 12 gives rise to turn 13 and 14 at campus. Koglu is slowing up, though. In the 35, he's losing grip. Whatever Van Velzen did in the pit lane, it is working, and it is giving him grip by the bucketful in the 420. On his way down to turn 15 at Stavelot, you can see the difference right there past the apex. Now, save for a slightly better exit there by Koglu. He's able to get on the throttle so much earlier than the McLaren, meaning he's actually got a chance on the exit of these corners here. The McLaren is one of the best cars on corner exit. It's no surprise to anyone here, but that Mustang has really pulled through on an exciting performance today. Out through Blanchimont we go then, turn 18, down towards turn 19 and 20. Cas van Velzen is drawing the gap close. I don't believe the like. On our way through the bus stop chicane, this could get very dicey here as we head into the final hour of racing. Past the halfway mark, we're still hotly awaiting what is going to be the optimum range then for our next run of pit stops in this race. Of course, they still have one more left to serve. As we've seen already, strategy has made this exceptionally interesting among the GT3s. The GT4s have spread out. You can see we're actually running up on them pretty quickly here. The top 5 in GT4 are just ahead of us. First of which is in 5th in class. Christian Lepay is about to witness an absolute blinder of a fight on our way out of turn 6 up the Kemmel Straight. You see he's in the slipstream there. He's just slowly reeling in the McLaren, but there just won't be enough space as we get to Lecom and Melmedy. There's a Chevrolet in the way there. Lepay's not going to want to move over as he's still got a race to fight for. This could get very, very spicy between GT3 and GT4. He's held up by the 119 there. Kilinkoglu manages to get wide on the exit of Melmedy. Van Veltsen's still with him. Remarkable stuff. Cyril on the inside down at turn 10. No incident there. The base just going to be able to cling on to the back end of these GT3s and ride the wave here up towards the 116 of Jake Garrett. 4th place in GT4, next into the iron sights of our warring duo, Cas Van Veltsen and Ilkay Kilinkoglu. Could be the warring trio here as Toby Cyril is closing the gap. But Cas Van Veltsen runs it wide, so Toby Cyril may have the opportunity he's been waiting for here on the exit of turn 12. Cas Van Veltsen rejoins, but he's behind. So now having to eye up his fight for 2nd position. He's not going to be happy about that one. A massive washout through turn 12. Aero stall over the nose. He's been staying so close to a Kilinkoglu. That was only a matter of time for Cas Van Veltsen. You can see here on the exit of Kerber Paul Frere, some of that being demonstrated. As you can see, he's starting to understeer a little bit more and more. The longer that he spends time here in other drivers' wake, the less that front aero is able to do its job. Now as we head towards Blanchemont, are we about to see double trouble as we saw down in Pool 1? No, he's absolutely glued to the back end of the BMW of Toby Cyril. Where do things land here on the run down towards turn 19 and 20 around the outside by Cas Van Veltsen? Jay Garrett's in the way there in the GT4 on our way to turn 20. Who comes out on top? Minor contact between the pair of them. Van Veltsen and Cyril down towards the line on the start of lap 24. It is brutal between these two. Garrett's in the way on the way down towards turn 1 at the source. He'll be out of the way when these two go blindsiding down through turn 1. On the inside goes Cas Van Veltsen. Brilliant stuff between these two. I'm almost at a loss for words. That is fantastic stuff. 1 hour, 2 minutes, 54 seconds left to go. Buckle your seatbelts. We are far from done here in the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. As now exiting turn 6, this is his opportunity. The time has come for the fight of 2nd. Who comes out on top then? Van Veltsen to the inside, Cyril to the outside as we head into Lecom. 2 abreast on our way to turn 7. I believe Van Veltsen has to try and give the space there to Cyril. Trying to play hard but fair, but he's back up in the 2nd. Very well done by Van Veltsen. What is the fight back though by Cyril? You can see he's in position to try and have a go down through turn 10. It's very nearly contact between the pair of them. Almost out of breath there. Can barely speak in this fight. It is brilliant. Okay, Kilinkoglu won't be arguing this with this whatsoever. He's 3 seconds up the road now because of this. Absolute cinema. Make no mistake, you are seeing the blossoms of a legendary rivalry here. Toby Cyril versus Cas Van Veltsen. This is brutal stuff. And is that the glimmer of black and yellow I see in the background? Or am I just seeing things amongst the mirage of heat here on the FIA Grade 1? Or is that Mir Ismail Rashidov creeping up on the fight? Could this get 3 man's company? This could get very interesting. Hold on to your seats. Do not turn off the telly. Prodger in the way there. A little bit of free slipstream for Van Veltsen. But you see Prodger is trying to get out of his way here. He doesn't want any part in the utter curb stomping he'd receive if he got in the way of Toby Cyril right now. That is an enraged BMW. You can see, though, the 2 Mercedes. That's Kuiper and Sylph. Are we seeing a fight here for the lead of GT4 in front? Let's get on board with these two then. We cut away from our fight for 2nd as things look to have kicked off from white hot to nuclear in our fight in GT4. David Sylph around the outside of Wesley Kuiper as Cas Van Veltsen looks to make it 3's company on the exit of La Source. Sylph now up into what appears to be the lead of GT4. We almost missed out on that. Let's see where things go between Kuiper and Sylph. A civil war at AMG on our way up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Watching then David Silf, the fight for first in GT4. Kuiper behind, hunting him down. Down into Lacombe and Melmedy. Kuiper's got the inside there on the exit towards Melmedy. He sold him an absolute blinder. Getting a look at that on the replay. Have a gander at this. Rashidov comes on through. Kuiper sees the gap. Doesn't, well, I'll have that off you. Thank you very much. Silf runs it late on the brakes into turn 7. Then by turn 8, Kuiper's at the inside. At turn 9. That is very, very clever stuff there. Cheeky, cheeky move indeed by Wesley Kuiper. David Silf, though, still right with him. Watching with the two warring GT4s. Bear in mind, any mistake they make now is to only benefit the car behind them, Hayden Prodger, who looks to get back firmly into this fight. He's only 2.3 seconds away from the two Mercs. As a matter of fact, you can see the physical gap as they enter campus. Yellow flags are out for Sector 2. The 114 in trouble. I believe that's Ben Cheeseman. Right now, though, we're still watching with GT4. We were watching the cinema up in GT3. We've now had to divert our attention into what looks like absolute white-hot action between Kuiper and Silf in control of the lead of division in GT4. They go rocketing towards Blanchimont. This could get dicey between the two Mercs. Silf's been showing absolutely no prisoner since he first tried for the position off of Kuiper. Kuiper, though, has been playing him like a fiddle over the course of this lap, but Silf's not giving up. He's coming out both arms swinging through turns 19 and 20. A very odd line by Kuiper, but I think he may have just scrubbed enough momentum to put Silf in line with him on the way down towards La Source. Brilliant stuff. Trying for it around the outside. Now, who comes out on top in this? I believe Silf may be looking for just a long run around. I think he gets a little bit more momentum than Kuiper, but Kuiper has the better exit. So now this is playing the long game out through Sector 1. You can see Prodger is just reaping the reward, though, of these two chicanery. Up through Eau and Radion we go. Prodger's got nice clean air here. Silf doesn't have that luxury, but he has got something quite... not Kuiper does. Well, Kuiper technically doesn't have slipstream, so yes, slipstream. Down the Kemmel straight, 0.3 of a second. Silf riding the side draft almost there of Kuiper. I'm not sure why he wasn't religiously sticking himself in the slipstream carved out between turn 6 and 7 by Kuiper. Wesley Kuiper then still leading GT4. We're watching with David Silf fighting from second in class to try and lead GT4 here. Looking at it overall, technically this is the fight for 9th position, but for division rankings, this is for the top of the podium for GT4 in today's race. We'll be checking back in with GT3 in a moment's time. But right now, we're not taking our eyes off of the proceedings at hand here, as it looks to become Three's company in a moment's time, as closing the gap down. Here comes Hayden Prodger, the dark horse of GT4 with KTM, hunting down the twin Mercs here of Silf and Kuiper. Mercedes putting on an absolute riot here in Spa. Who comes out on top, though? Silf closer than ever on the exit of Kerber Paul Frere. Now as we make turn 17 over towards turn 18 in a moment's time. Here at Blanchimont. Silf's towards the inside. He'll be at premier position come turn 18, but Kuiper's going the long way around town. Where's he going to be as we enter the run towards turn 19? Wesley Kuiper's going to have to try for something insane here to retake the lead of this race off of David Silf in GT4 out through turn 19, then to turn 20. Has he got it nailed in? Yes, he has. Fantastic work by David Silf. Good things come to those who wait, and he's waited plenty enough there for that move. Brilliant stuff by Silf. We'll catch up with them in a moment's time. Then we cut away from... Oh, maybe never mind. I was about to say we're going to cut away from the GT4 action. No, I don't think we will. Because that has just tipped the scales back in favour of Wesley Kuiper. Let's try and get on board here with Kuiper, now in the attacking position for the race lead in GT4. Provisionally, this is for 9th position overall. 55 minutes left to go. We are in the end game here for GT4 and GT3 alike. You see the last of the pit stops coming through from the 114 of Ben Schiessman. We're still watching that fight for the lead, though, between Kuiper and Sylph. Now the roles are reversed. Kuiper around the outside at turn 7, then to the inside at turn 8, then to the outside at turn 9 at the exit of Melmedy. But look at this, right behind them, there's Hayden Prodger. Could this become Three's company on our way to turn 10? Absolutely. 0.3 of a second either side of it. Kuiper is swamped. Out through turn 11 we go then. Just looking on board, you can see how close the gap is on either side of it. That is a bit of a frightening sight indeed. I said before, it's like a half and half between a stealth fighter and the Batmobile, that crossbow. And you can see a bit of struggle there by Prodger past Puan. Seems to be a bit of issue linking that rear end up. The front will give and give and give. The back end doesn't want to follow. Can we see the same philosophy in practice here through campus? You can see where they rapidly approaching number 61. That's Kieran Rodd in GT3. Just going to be squirreling his way on through there around the outside on Prodger. Fair play, he's giving him the space. He is giving him the space. All the time, you have to leave the space. A wise man once said. Kuiper running wide, though, out of turn 16 could invite Prodger to come and have a go. Is this the fight for second in GT4? Maybe too early to call. We'll catch up with them in a moment's time then. Looking around the field, Roman Zhdanov in 8th in GT4. Nowhere near another position right now, but you can see slowly reeling in fellow Ukrainian driver Dmitry Snai in the 57 Ginetta. Could be a fight on our hands for 7th in GT4 very soon. Toby Cyril is half a second away from second in GT3. You see in the background by 5 seconds there, Mirosmail Rashidov in the number 21 Porsche could find his way back into the fight on a podium very, very soon. Bear in mind, one more run through the pits we have before the end of this race. Speaking of, there goes James Mason on his last pit stop of today in GT4. Alan Alexander there being passed by Tyler Vermack. Vermack has been on the warpath here since his penalty. Will be looking, clawing at any advantage to give himself a top 5. Right now, we're on board with Hayden Prodger, 0.3 of a second from second place. Fighting with Wesley Kuiper then. And I think in much similar vein to what we saw in GT3, how the Lexus seems to fit Vermack like a glove. I think it's the same story here for Prodger and that KTM, because you can see he is making very few mistakes here. You can see the difference in control. He's having to wrestle the car out of oversteer. Kuiper's having to wrestle his car out of understeer. And this very strange difference in handling is clearly this late into their stint proving to be the benefit for Prodger. We will be checking back in though with Ilkay Kilinkoglu, because that gap between himself and Cas van Velzen is not big to say the least. Right now though, it's the fight for second. Prodger v Kuiper, Mercedes versus KTM here in the GT4 category. 51 minutes left to go. And it has not been a dull race, I must say. On paper, if you were to tell me, hey, we've got a race coming up, we've got 11 GT4s and 8 GT3s at Spa for 2 hours, I'd think, well, that could really be a mix. That could really be a mix. But with drivers like these, with talent such as this, you can't even suggest boredom in this race, because we have had no shortage of good fights to watch today. It has been an absolute cornucopia for exciting battles here in Spa. It has been the perfect battleground for GT3 and GT4 alike, and I thoroughly await where things go in Mount Panorama. Prodger to the inside at turn 19, mild contact between himself and Wesley Kuiper. Then on the exit of turn 20, it's side by side, 2 litres versus 4, AMG versus Audi engine, KTM versus Mercedes. On our way down towards La Source, after a little bump through turns 19 and 20, Hayden Prodger is up to second. Let's watch on board then that very unique cockpit view of the Crossbow, having that panoramic wraparound windscreen, reminiscent of the Koenigsegg's, well, various, to be honest, name your poison, Koenigsegg Agera, Regera, Gemera, CCX, CCS, CCGT. You're not spoilt for choice. A very unique view, but one that fails to show Wesley Kuiper, who now, rather unfortunately, has a drive-through penalty. And it seems to be another driver caught out by the enraptured track limits at Eau Rouge and Raidillon. That, sadly, spells doom for his endeavours in GT4. I imagine this will be served with almost immediate effect here. Kuiper trying to salvage his strategy. Proger, not going to be arguing with that one. Sylph leads the charge then with Mercedes, and Proger looks to hold on to a confident P2. All things said and done on the grounds, he too doesn't find himself victim of the stewards. What a fight though it has been indeed. They have shared in quite the clash. And it seems a bit of a bittersweet end then in the Kuiper v Proger fight of second. We'll catch up with them later on. Christian Lebay then will gain an extra position, much to the chagrin of Wesley Kuiper, who will be looking closer and closer at an eye up of the podium. Jake Garrett won't be arguing with that whatsoever, making it a Mercedes 1 and 3 once more, with the 116 looking to overtake the 111 in the pit lane. Lebay, though, finds himself by his lonesome. The only company he has is the lapping car of Kyle Jenkins on the exit of Pouon there on our way down towards campus. Will relish in an extra position before the end of his time here in Spa, looking at potentially fourth by the end of this race. Bear in mind, pit strategy still has a lot to play. And there's going to be plenty to discuss over the course of the next 48 minutes of racing. First things first, though, the number 7 of Toby Cyril, who we saw on the warpath hunting down positions, is now back into the pits for his final pit stop of this race. He has had a very bold comeback drive. I must say, it would be very, very difficult to take that off of him. Having a look around the field once more, Proger and Kuiper take it both into the pit lane. Now the question is Kuiper going to serve his drive-through on this run, or is he going to come in and actually do a normal pit stop? Because I believe you can do that. Nothing in the rulebook to say you can't. But the drive-through penalty will more likely than not be the priority by Kuiper. We can see there pangs of frustration. He's in our Twitch chat at the moment saying things that we can't repeat on air. But the frustration is very, very real. Wesley, if you don't mind us asking then, by text response, was it up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon? We watched them on their way down through the last of our podiums there in GT4. That's soon to change then, with Kuiper looking to serve a drive-through penalty. And a drive-through penalty is a race killer for a lot of people. Yes, we got confirmation then from Wesley Kuiper it was Eau Rouge and Raidillon. That seems to be the Achilles heel for GT4 at the moment, just because they've got a lot less aero to play with. And that's the sad reality of GT4, especially when stacked up against GT3. Up through a very intense corner like that, you're going to struggle tenfold the amount you'll struggle in GT3. But it's been a very, very fantastic race, and it's sad to see things go in that direction, but sadly no one's exempt to the rules. Having a look then at the various fates of the Camaros in this race, 3 in all from the Malois race team, John Prine, Kevin Quain and Christian Lebay. We just saw there from Lebay, he's up in now 3rd in class after Proger's pit stop run, and looking to try and extend the gap here for the time that he's got. 46.5 minutes. He still has a pit stop to serve before the end of this race. Lebay hunting down a top 4. He's been given the green light there from the penalty by Wesley Kuiper. Has a very good shot here of a top 4 finish. That'll be solid points in by the time we get to Mount Panorama at the end of the month, June 21st, for round 2 of the championship. John Prine and Kevin Quain then on various lengths of the race, down in 11th and 8th in class, 16th and 19th overall. Cas van Veltzen, we just see here coming into the pit lane, one of our podium sitters in GT3. He's had a fantastic fight all race long, and now we get to see the set piece being created here for that final act, that final stint on the horizon. Kieran Rodd then up into 3rd with Ford. Tyler Vermack in 8th at the moment, having served his last pit stop. He's going to have a long, long road to travel to the checkered flag. 45 minutes still on the horizon, still in for the long run here. I must say, I think we've hit the Goldilocks zone for strategy and for race length. It's a very unique one, at least for me and my time as a commentator. I've not been able to see many of these 2-hour races. We've seen hour 45, we've seen hour and a half. We've seen 30, we've seen 4, we've seen 3 hours, we've seen 6 hours, and I think by the end of the year we're seeing 12 hours. We've done 9 hours on and off, but 2 hours is a very unique one. For a reason I can't quite lay my finger on, but it just seems to create this melting pot of opportunity here. Kuiper and Koglu side by side there. Koglu potentially eyeing up his final run into the pits with 3/4 of an hour left on the clock. What's the going rate for the 35? He's still on track for this next lap coming. One thing I haven't really considered as well about these races, and imagine this is something that weighs heavy on the drivers, just how hungry it makes you for some reason. Starving. Admittedly, I haven't ate, so that would probably be that. Jake Garrett in second then is not going to be arguing with the result he's being presented with here. He'll be up to the podium by the looks of things after GT4's final run of pit stops. Having a look at who is and isn't inside that pit lane at the moment, you can see that Cas van Veltzen, Toby Cyril, Ben Cheeseman and Tyler Vermack in GT3, and then Hayden Prodger and James Mason have taken their final pit stops, meaning they're subject to rise a few extra positions here before the end of this race. Could Cas van Veltzen make his way to the lead of this race? Could we see the build-up in the next 43 minutes to a win by the number 420? He has played things very close to his chest here. He's been in plenty of fights and he's won quite a few of them. Where do things land, though, on his final deck of cards to play? Right now, though, you can see in GT4 leading the charge with one pit stop left to go. David Silf and Jake Garrett are Mercedes 1-2. Christian LeBay now up to third in GT4. Could be down to fourth with Hayden Prodger on the horizon, having took their final pit stop. The 222 could be finding their way to the podium by the end of this race in category. It'll be a very solid start then by the solitary KTM. A lot to consider right now. We'll just quickly check in with the number 7, Toby Cyril, who is himself not too far away at all from Cas van Veltzen. Only a 6.4 second gap at the moment. If he gets caught up in any more GT4 traffic, there could be an opening for him to come and fight for what is potentially a provisional race lead. Having a look around the field, there's Wesley Kuiper looking to fight now with Dimitri Snai. This is for the top 5 in class. So looking at it here, fighting for 5th in class, Ginetta versus Mercedes. Bear in mind, Kuiper still has a pit stop to serve here, as too does Snai. So at the best of things at the moment, Kuiper may not be as down and out as he thinks he is with the extra pit stop still on the horizon. He is trying his luck there, but the one thing about the Ginettas is they do have, oh well, I was going to say pretty good brakes. I think he's overcooked it there, Snai, and Kuiper's just let him run himself out of ground. Fair enough. I was about to say the one thing that the Ginettas have a pretty solid grasp of are the brakes, but that's maybe not the best time to mention that. I'll catch up with them later on. Looking around then, you can see not too far away from the fight, Roman Zdanov. Just eyeing things up from 7th in category. Toby Cyril, 6th in GT3, with subject to gain more positions as one of the 2 drivers at the moment up at the front of that final pitter sort of variety, I guess you could say, for lack of better word. He's took his last pit stop and oh, that's a big snap out there. I don't think Cyril's going to be particularly happy about that one. On his efforts to try and get past David Silf there, you can see what's going on our way down towards campus. Silf's been able to hold his line. Now he's been given the go-ahead by race control to do so. Cyril isn't particularly happy with that. I don't think he was expecting Silf to still be there at the end of the move. He's still behind David Silf's Mercedes. You can see here from the perspective of Toby Cyril the difference when we get the foot down here in a straight line between Mercedes and BMW's offerings from GT4 and GT3 respectively. Now a 9.7 second gap to Cas van Veltzen, so he's compromised his run on Van Veltzen for higher positions for now at least, but with 40 minutes still left to play for, anything could happen in that time. So do not hold your breath to anything. Looking right now to see where our nearest fights are coming from. Snai attempting a pushback then against Kuiper. He's 0.7 of a second out when we caught him there. He dropped 3/10. He's now only dropped 2. You see the Ginettas, they are a sprightly bunch, but on a track as grandiose as Spa, they seem to be a little bit out of their depth here. But nonetheless, Alan Alexander and Dimitri Snai, the 2 Ginettas for this round, have put on one hell of a show. Currently in the middle of the field for the GT4s, they'll be picking up solid points come round 2 of the championship. Speaking of the lightweight GT4s, Hayden Prodger, he's going to be riding the wave up towards the front of the pack for GT4. He could be on the precipice of, if I'm not mistaken now, I don't mean this as any insult to Prodger because I've not been able to follow the bulk of his career in GT. I have been able to see a lot of his work through Rally and through Grand Prix when he made his sim racing debut, but we could be on the horizon here of his first win, and that would be a very, very proud sight indeed, having watched his career all the way back during Formula 1 when he raced with AlphaTauri on TRR, to seeing a potential win on the horizon for Prodger today. It is looking to be a very hopeful next 39 minutes of racing. He is hoping then for the 222. Christian Lebay into the pit lane then, a season regular and season hero, champion of Season 1 of the Sunday League, looking for a solid result in GT4. Now make no mistake of that, he has played his cards very, very smartly over the course of this race. He's kept himself out of trouble. See TG in chat dropping a bit of a truth nuke there. The Ginetta is pretty capable at Spa. Don't underestimate it just because it's not being driven by the fastest drivers. Ooh, okay. So with some respect there, some credit to Alan Alexander and to Dimitri Snai. They have been playing up against a pretty solid grid. K1 Doc asking, how's the 413 doing? Well, to answer your question, whilst we've got some time here in between strategic calls, we have a look around the field to try and find James Mason in the 413. Whereabouts might he be hiding? Currently 10th in class, 18th overall. See Alan Alexander in the pits then. Now, we've previously seen Alan Alexander in the Euro Titans car during the Console Endurance Series. He was pretty solid there. And I'll be willing to take you up on that argument, TG. I do like to see a little bit of pushback sometimes against my opinions of it, but the Ginetta, it just seems, at least on the Camel, a little bit out of its depth, and it's not hard to make that assumption up against, say, the Camaro or the Mercedes, of which it has gone toe-to-toe with, and with due respect to your opinion there, they have been able to prove a pretty solid fight. See here, Vermack and Rod, 2 different lengths of the race, very nearly contact between the pair. Was a little bit of a rub there on the exit of Kerber Paul Frere. There goes Kieran Rod trying to lap past Tyler Vermack. This is alarmingly closed. That's fair enough. Oh my word, I'll have to get back to you, TG. Oh my god. That was a huge bit of contact. Now, I'm watching the live footage right now that you can't see. Rod and Vermack are still okay, so I have no idea how he's been able to pull that back to still be ahead of Vermack. This was a Blanchimont, right? Turn 18, little knock there. He slid it. He slid it like an oval. He chastained it. That's brilliant. How has he managed to do that then? The world's first GT Cobra manoeuvre there by Kieran Rod. See Mirasmel Rashidov into the pit lane then. And I believe, is that the same story for our race leader? I do want to find that tidbit of information out right now. No, number 35 still out on track, just making their way around turn 12. So interesting strategic calls here by Mirasmel Rashidov. And there is the race leader, Ilkay Killing-Koglu, who has had just a dominant performance from the word go there. It was a shocker move at the start that's led to a success lap in, lap out. Just navigating the traffic there of Roman Stanov, the number 83 Mercedes in GT4. You've really got to hand it to him here. It has been a very, very solid race indeed. Slightly hits the limiter at the end there, says TG on the end of the cam. To be fair, it gets, I'm pretty sure, just before the braking zone starts hitting the rev limiter. Pretty sure. By that point, who cares? So yeah, with every respect, it is a capable car. It's just not been able to have the best of times today. I have the firm opinion when we get to Bathurst, we could definitely see some strong performances. Now, yes, of course, you still have the Mountain Straight and the Conrod Straight to contend with, but in the bulk of it, up in that top of the mountain section from turn 2 onwards, I see a bit of a spicy race for the two Ginettas at the moment. And bear in mind, I've got the entry list right here to hand. I can show you every driver, I can tell you right now, every driver that is set to drive the Ginetta this season. Jamie Ball, Alan Alexander, Dimitri Snai, Hinot First, and Louis van der Houten. That's 5 drivers, 5 possible opportunities for a podium for Ginetta. TG saying in Bathurst it's unusable. All right, well, I will see. I will see. Now, of course, this is a very curious endeavour for me as a commentator, as I don't have a lot of skin in the game for GT4, but I'm a big fan of these machines. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this field takes to it. And moreover, I'd say this is an interesting test for the drivers, having a look at it. Because you have a lot of drivers here I wouldn't expect to have took the initiative to go into GT4 and are having a pretty good go at it. See Kyle Jenkins just making his way out then, having took his final pit stop, loses a position out though to Tyler Vermack on a comeback drive to the top 5. He's only 2 positions away from glory. I must say as well, I think Rod and Vermack are still with each other here. Right now, though, this is going to be our next focal point here. A battle for 4th position. We're watching with Toby Cyril fighting Mir Ismail Rashidov to the very end here. 34 minutes left to go. To K1 Jupiter in chat, Paul Ricard would be worse. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't have the Mistral chicane. We've not got any of the stuff that you have in the French Grand Prix. You've just got a straight line from Mistral down towards, was it Fagnier? Something like that. What's that corner called? The other drivers except the Ginetta, it's fun though. Like tracks like Monza. But here's the funny thing. I mentioned this earlier in the stream as we stay on board with this fight for 4th position right now between Cyril and Rashidov. Fun fact as well, TG. I don't know how Singya, thank you, Sang, however you say it. There was the idea floated for some time for a Ginetta Cup, and that went under with the change of administration. And personally, I would say it would still be a fantastic race if anyone could get that off the ground. Oh yeah, Fagnier is after Poom. I knew I would have got the wires crossed there. Nearly a year ago now. Wow, I'm getting old. So then, still in that fight for 4th. 0.2 of a second now. They're playing this very, very close to the chest here between Cyril and Rashidov. Now, this isn't anywhere as close as cinematic as we got the last time around. In fact, there's a lot more strategy involved now. With nothing left to stand in their way, they're playing their moves very, very carefully. This is an alarmingly hesitant drive out of these two. But of course, with the stakes oh so incredibly high, and with 32 minutes left to go, no more risks involved unless absolutely necessary would be the modus operandi inside the paddock for these two. Having a look around the field, there's James Mason having a little trip over Rouge and Radion, having a cut there. Radion, the aero doesn't seem to be doing an awful lot of work now for the BMW, reluctantly so, but Mason holding on to a top 10 finish in category. To be fair, the problem is now with doing a Ginetta Cup, as much as I would love to see more of these, and I think Alan Alexander and Dimitri Snai have been a very good showcase as to why the Ginettas need their own Cup series, because they have been with each other the entire race. I fail to remiss a time where these two haven't been in close proximity to one another, whether by 1 or 2 positions at the most. The problem with it now, there's just no space on the calendar. The only space there would be by slots that are eventually going to be taken up by the Console Endurance Series. As a special event, absolutely. Wouldn't have any problem with that, but it's just, I think it's a scheduling thing, really, with the mods. Of course, I only play partially a hand here. I'm media more so than anything. More so than an administrator of NLRL, I am a contractor, so my skin in the game on what goes on is minimal. it would be an interesting thing. Once we've got the time, as a matter of fact, because we do have time between now and the 21st. We've got about 2 to 3 races a month here in this series lined up before October, where the season ends in Indianapolis at round 10. There would be, if for like 3 or 4 races, just a special series. When we were back running TRR before we became TRTM, we ran a 4-round championship using exclusively the Vantage. And that's where Ian Skeen came through, a driver best known for his time with AERT and then with Euro Titans, came through and absolutely blitzkrieged that series before he made his way into the sprint series. So it's definitely possible. I think it would be interesting, and I would love to see the mods throw in that direction a potential bid for a Ginetta Championship. I think it would be a fun little time. These are magical little cars, and they're very eccentric amongst the GT4 paddock because they were never really supposed to be here. They were cup races first and then augmented for SRO. You can tell like parts of that philosophy still exist in the fact that this is the only right-hand drive car in GT4. It wasn't originally going to be going that direction, but because of the modular nature of most Ginetta products, it can go in that direction at any time. It's almost a pity then, I think, looking back on GT4 sometimes, that we didn't get more of them in ACC, especially considering the cars that run ACC sponsorship in real life in GT4. As we see now, Cas van Veltzen does lead this race and looks to be on the charts for a race win. This is looking incredibly hopeful. So he's 5 seconds up the field from Ilkay Kilinkoglu. He has played this very, very close on strategy, and it has rewarded him tenfold. He holds the fastest lap of this race at 2:17.612, and he is on the precipice here of the inaugural win of the season in GT3. Yeah, back on the sort of miniature tirade that chat's got me on about GT4. It's almost a pity then that we didn't get more of them, as I believe it's the 7th gen Mustang, the Emira, and the Supra that I've all seen with ACC stickers on them, and it's such a pain that we never got more GT4 content because I think those would have fit in quite nicely on this grid. They may have had a bit of a McLaren and Mustang effect up in GT3, but the balance of performance would take care of that, realistically. Right now, though, we're going to have to liven back up as we're looking here in at GT4 on the battle of the race lead. Watching on board then with David Silf fighting for division lead against Hayden Prodger. It could carry all the way to the checkered flag. 27.5 minutes left to go here in Spa-Francorchamps. The battle of two has officially begun. Watching in very close to an incident down at Stavelot. Out through Kerber Paul Frere. You can see he's just got slightly more straight line speed on that KTM. David versus Goliath here, out through Blanchemont corner, turn 18, then gives rise to turns 19 and 20. Silf is practically pushing Prodger towards the final corners of this track, down towards the bus stop chicane, squeezed within an inch of his life there to turn 19. David Silf may have just been denied that move by Prodger, and expertly so. Get a gander at how close things were between the pair on their way down towards turn 19 and 20. We're still watching the live footage. We'll give you updates if and when they arrive. Silf still behind, but looking for a move on the inside. Very nearly had a bit of a collision there. So thin between the pair of them. There was that margin, was that gap between the pair of them down through turn 19 and 20. Absolutely paper thin stuff between Silf and Prodger. Up through Eau Rouge and Radion. Then to the Kemmel. Turn 6, now onwards towards turn 7. Now this is where the KTM starts to flag a little bit here over the Mercedes. Now you've got to add as well, we've got Slipstream on our side in the favour of Silf's AMG on his way down towards Lacombe, and Melmedy is just too far away to be staging any kind of assault too early on here. Bear in mind, even though the race is winding down to the checkered flag, these two still have 25 minutes to play against here. So we've still got to be thinking in and around the mindset. It's a marathon, not a sprint here. They've already worked so hard to put themselves in this position. Let's not squander the opportunity. 25.5 minutes. Play for the long game seems to be the going rates here. If there is the opportunity, Sylph will absolutely take it. But compared to what we were seeing, especially around the midway, a lot less risk being taken. Prodger is putting on a very stern defense here from Sylph, and these two are absolutely level on their way down towards, if I remember correctly, Fangye and Campus. I just call it Campus at this, but I keep forgetting the name of the corner. Out through Campus, still side by side, then towards Stavolo at turn 15. They're still neck and neck, but then squeezed out past the apex at turn 15. The KTM's just got a little bit more rotation per corner, bar turn 16, where both of them start understeering. That seems to be a very common theme amongst the GT4s now. On the exit of turn 16, then comes turn 17 and 18, where the Mercedes is back into priority here. It's got the advantage over the KTM by nature of better straight line speed and the slipstream. Out through turn 18 we go. You can see it's absolutely nothing between them. Are we on for second time's the charm here? Prodger is going to have to stage another lightning defense, but now moving towards the inside. Sylph has to back out though of that move. Prodger holding centre mass of the road. A very solid defence by the Brit. The battle of Britain here between the two British talents up in GT4. Mercedes versus KTM. On that last lap as well, only a 0.2 of a second difference between our two leading GT4s. Having a quick gander on the map here to see whereabouts our next fights could be coming from. None appears so close as what we're seeing on our screens at the moment. We do have a yellow flag out. It's the number 7 in trouble out through Lacombe and Melmedy. That's Toby Cyril. So could Cyril's endeavours here to try and get back to a solid podium finish have gone belly up in this last lap gone? The number 21 of Rashidov continues to open the gap, now out past turn 12 as the number 7 makes turn 11. We're back into green flag conditions then for the last 23 minutes of racing. We're still watching for the fight of the race lead here for GT4. David Sylph versus Hayden Prodger. David versus Goliath here. The monstrously large Merc versus the titular KTM. You can see it's just such perfect mastery of one's machine here between these two. They're making this look easy. But the gap could not be smaller. Anything closer than that and we run the imminent risk of contact. The one upside that KTM's got, it's got very defined corners. It's a bit of a square bod car. Apparently auto mod thinks shill is a curse word. Okay. Out through Campus down towards Stavolo. Then to Kerber Paul Frere. It's absolutely dead set between these two at the moment. I can barely breathe watching this fight because anything closer and there could be a very nasty off between the pair of them. Now as they make turn 17 around the outside, out towards Blanchemont, squeezed out of the way then, making turn 18. Prodger holding on for dear life for the lead of GT4. It's absolutely brilliant stuff between these two. Sensational action, and it can only keep going down towards turn 19 and 20. It's contact between the pair of them at turn 19. Prodger has to take the runoff at turn 20. David Sylph continues on track. Now a second dividing the pair. Don't believe a steward's investigation on horizon there for Hayden Prodger. That seemed like a necessary action to avoid any further problems. Very late on the break there. Ambitious stuff by Sylph. 21 minutes left to go. You see the perspective here from Sylph fighting for the race lead on his way up Arouge and Radion. Ooh, getting a bit dicey with track limits now. We've seen this claim the drives today of so many. I don't believe Sylph wants to add himself to the list of victims here of turns 3 through 5. You see in the background there's a very quickly approaching Kieran Rod from the top 5 of GT3. Out through turn 9 then, makes turn 10. I must say, we are in for a proper spectacle here. The way Sylph has been able to reel this back in. Can anyone else in chat verify this? On behalf of Wishful Winnings, is the stream freezing? We don't actually have a view ourselves here. Still watching on board then with Sylph v Proger. Yeah, it might be a client-side issue. So, out through Puon, then to Campus. You can see the number 61 is about to become a very active element in this fight here. He's got a race to prove for himself here. He's hunting a solid top 5 in GT3, whereas these two are hunting gold in GT4. Just watch this from the onboard of the 443. How quickly the number 61 just gets right up in his face there. Actually pushes him away from turn 16. Sylph ain't going to be happy about that one. And oh my word, did you see how close he was getting there? Well, the GT3s do disregard for GT4 safety at this point. Kieran Rod has a point to prove, and he doesn't care what shape of car you're driving or what classification. If you're in front, you ought to not be. Down towards turn 19 and 20. That's a 1 second gap because of that. Sylph will not be happy. The 35 and the 420 are getting close. We could be in the bookings here for a fight of the race lead up in GT3. We'll be checking that as we speak. We continue to watch here what looks to be a very quick bounce back, by the way, by Sylph. So one does question almost as to how exactly it is so easy for him to draw in maybe 4, 5, 6 tenths of a second. The moment he's within that vital 4 to 3 tenths of a second gap, it just all slows down to slow motion between these two. Is that a testament to just what absolute world-class defence we're seeing by Proger to hold on to the GT4 race lead? Or is it something else entirely? 18.5 minutes will tell us different. Down towards turn 7 we go then. 39 laps strong then here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps towards the end of the opening round of the NLRL Solo Multiclass Endurance Championship by Malois Transport. And whilst we've got some time here and what doesn't look to be going active very shortly, you can see 0.4 of a second gap there, so we'll keep it brief. Let's have a quick gander around the field. The last of our podium sitters for GT4, Jake Garrett, won't be arguing with the way things have gone over the course of his race. He's climbed through the ranks in a very silent and stealthy manner, just capitalising on the mistakes of the drivers around him, keeping his head under and no trouble whatsoever. Wesley Kuiper then in 5th will come home to take, by the looks of it, a top 5 finish in GT4 on thoughts of what could have been caught out by the bad luck of the stewards ruling up Eau Rouge and Radeon. Roman Stanov looking at 8th. Looking at here, Toby Cyril had some trouble down through turn 7 through 9 at Lacombe and Melmedy, but he's still in the top 5, but he's a ways away from Mir Ismail Rashidov, who now holds on the top 3 positions. Looking at this, Alan Alexander being overtaken by Cas van Veltzen, the race leader, who's only 3 seconds away from Ilkay Kilinkoglu, who led this race from turn, well, effectively turn 1. It was actually turn 3 through 5 after a lightning send up Eau Rouge and Radeon. Look at that slide by Cas van Veltzen. We'll have to be catching on board with this battle very shortly. Now we're looking at the defending perspective. The leading car of GT4 is Hayden Proger, and he has held onto this with an iron vice. He's took the opportunity and absolutely ran with it. Now can he hold his nerve for 16.5 minutes of racing before the checkered flag and take home what is possibly his first win in GT? He is hoping here, because it's a very hopeful outlook for either sides of it. David Sylph will not be arguing with a win on debut here in the Solo Multiclass Endurance, and neither will Proger. Both of these two British talents gunning for a victory. Does not matter what the category is, a win is a win, and these two have fought tooth, nail, blood and oil for it. It is absolutely fantastic stuff to behold. Checking in with Christian Lebay. Looks like he's gunning for a top 4 by the looks of things after everything's said and done. That penalty for Kuiper has given him the opportunity to take home very solid points here on the opening rounds. Now, we've seen before Christian Lebay is a GT4 champion in TRC, so is this the wind-up into a dominant performance on the horizon? Is Spa the kryptonite for that 119? Well, only time will tell when we get to the end of the month on June 21st for round 2 of the championship and see where the Camaro plays in the Mount Panorama circuit. Do thoroughly look forward to that. 0.4 of a second then between our two leading cars here in the fight for first. Looking over the rear spoiler to get a very clear view, as a matter of fact, with David Silver. A very low profile spoiler for the KTM. Out through turn 12, you can see riding in the dirty air. He's getting little touches of understeer there. That's also fatigue on those tyres. These two have not been giving each other a rest over the course of this final stint of the race. Down through campus we go, turns 13 and 14. So Sylph is able to reel in a little bit more time to Prodger. Down towards turn 15 at Stavolo. Looking at it here as we make our way out to Kerber Fair. Now this is where understeer seems to be at its most plentiful for the GT4s. These two making very light work of it though, made that look easy. This is where the Mercedes is just able to hook onto him and reel him in here. Fishing for a lead of this race. On our way to Blanchimont, he'll still be behind, having to take a little bit of a more lenient line here. The KTM keeps it planted firmly into the bulkhead of this car at the moment. Down towards turn 19 and 20. Still holding on behind Prodger, waiting for his opportunity now. He's tried to play things loud. He's got to play things smart. 14 minutes left to go. Each minute now ticking by like an hour. It is an incredibly long span of time for these drivers. They're functionally looking in and around 6.5, 7 laps before the checkered flag here. They've got to make those count. Now running up on John Prine, lapping one of the fellow GT4s then. The number 22 next in their sights as they make their way out of turn 2 towards turn 3 through 5. To answer your question, Jupe, what that does is make your message glow bright neon purple on my screen. So, still watching the fight for first place. That is really jarring how I can just jump out of that. In through turns 7, 8 and 9, Lacombe and Melmedy. That surf around John Prine's Chevrolet seems to have shaken a little bit of the faith here between these two. Down towards turn 10 we go. Out through turn 11, Prodger still vehemently holding on to the lead of this race, and he's put on a very, very good defensive performance so far. How far can he elevate things though as we head into the final 12.5 minutes of racing? Out through turn 12, yes again, next heading into frame for them will be a GT3 looking to make its way past as only 2 seconds out you can see, and closing in fast, the number 114 of Ben Cheeseman inside the top 6 in GT3. Heading out through turn 15. They've actually probably lucked out on this one here. This is one of the best places to be overtaken by the GT3s, as now Cheeseman's got the opportunity to let loose the taps there on that 720S. He's going to make light work of this and giving himself a little bit of free side draft by the looks of it there, because Prodger's having to move out of the way. He's moving him off the racing line and moving him closer towards Sylph. You can see it is definitely reeled the gap in because we're at 0.1 of a second. Actually nothing between them on the exit of turn 18. So Sylph trying for the outside again. Prodger's going to have to hold the inside for the lead of GT4. Is his second time to charm for Sylph? A perfect late apex there at turn 19. Can he get it done twice in a row? Yes, he can. Right back to the rear bumper of Hayden Prodger, practically pushing him down towards turn 1. This is absolutely sensational stuff. One of the best battles I've seen in years. Out through La Source. Then comes turn 2. Tyler Vermack right behind him, actually hunting down Ben Cheeseman. And this is conversely to where Cheeseman was in the best position to have caught them, Vermac's in the worst, because up through Rouge and Radion, he's getting a little bit of aero wash over that GT3, and he's right on top of them as we make our way to turn 6. Very nearly looked like trouble between the pair of them. There goes Tyler Vermac. Free slipstream then for David Silf as he rides alongside Hayden Prodger. Prodger is vulnerable. A little bit of a push and shove between the pair of them. Elbows out on their way down towards Lacombe and Melmedy. Prodger to the inside. Is it nearly contact? Very nearly. Over the curbs goes David Silf. Prodger now tucks in to second place. Oh my word, that was perfectly timed by Silf, but a little bit of elbows out action between himself and Prodger. Prodger trying down towards turn 10. It's contact between the pair of them. Oh, this is going sour. You can see the pressure is getting to him now. These battles usually go one way, and it's very downhill by the looks of it. Let's see though, Hayden Prodger is a tough driver to break. And now he finds himself in the attacking position in a car that I would make the assessment here of the two right now has got a little bit more to give in the corners. In the middle section of the track, he's in the best possible position to keep the gap as close as possible so he can be in the slipstream come turn 17 and 18 at Blanchimont. This is getting very, very lively. 0.4 of a second. Now that Silf's in the clean air, he has got free reign of the situation. He's not tucked in behind the KTM anymore. He's not struggling for temperature control. He's not in the dirty air, picking up aero wash, picking up excessive heat. He is free to run, and 0.5 of a second makes 0.6 on the exit of Curb at Paul Frere. No, he's definitely not happy with that tap on the straight there. Very astute by K1 Jupiter. He's not happy at all. You can see its frustration in the drive right now. On the thoughts of what could have been, you can't really blame him under those circumstances. Obviously, probably shouldn't have done that tap, but this is white hot, ultra tight conditions here up at the lead of GT4. This isn't a tea party, this is war. We're going to get on board though, because we have got quite the interesting spectacle here. We've just caught this. Cas van Velzen now fighting for his defence of the race lead. Ilkay Akilinkoglu around the outside. Are we seeing a mirror match of what we saw in the fight for the GT4 lead? Now up in the top class of GT3. A little bit of lag on the exit of turn 20. Let's stay on board with the Ford of Cas van Velzen. He is exceedingly vulnerable now to the advances of Ilkay Akilinkoglu. 8.5 minutes left to go. This could be it. Mir Ismail Rashidov only 6.6 seconds away. One incident and he's on top of him. Down through turn 2. Up through Rouge and Radion, you can see Aero Wash going to be playing a little bit there. And oh my word, did you see the slide by Ilkay Akilinkoglu? That's precisely what he was afraid of there, but he's still hanging on for dear life from turn 6 on the run down the Kemmel. Who comes out on top as we enter Lacombe and Melmedy? Akilinkoglu tried to get inside Van Velzen's head. You won't fool me twice, he says. Out through turn 7, now through turn 8, now through turn 9, still leading the fight. That was incredible car control by Ilkay Akilinkoglu to hold his nerve there. That looked like it could have gone very, very wrong for him up through Rouge and Radion. Out through turn 11, Van Velzen is vulnerable. The McLaren's got better cornering than him on this setup. Akilinkoglu's been able to make the bulk of his time here in the middle sector. Van Velzen is going to be praying he can keep the McLaren behind him by turn 15. On his way out of turn 12, looking over the rear spoiler again. The gap a little bit wider now, 0.4 of a second. Just about a car's length between them. You can see there after the apex and trying to get around GT4 traffic. John Prine getting himself accidentally into the way of this fight for the race lead. Now at turn 15, this is the action zone. He's been trying to keep him behind 4. Now through turn 16, Akilinkoglu's really got to dig deep for this move now. Cas van Velzen is putting on an absolute monolith show for a defence of the race lead right now. 6 minutes left to go. Out through turn 18. What on earth happened there between himself and Jake Garrett? Let's get a look on the replay. Right now, Cas van Velzen still holds on to the race lead. I think there was a bit of trouble. We looked away for just a split second there, and that was our mistake, because now you can see what on earth happened through turn 18. He had to go the long way around. Even looked like contact there. Killinkoglu's lucky to come out of that with very little damage. That could have got very, very dicey. I think he really sort of dancing with the devil here. He's really tempting fate after not only nearly taking it into a proper tank slapper up Rouge and Radion, but very nearly getting taken out by a GT4 out through turn 18. He's 1 second away, so he's not in the pivotal slipstream zone. You can see he is running an ever so slightly lower downforce. Actually might just be close enough. You can see Mirosmel Rashidov giving Jake Garrett some tow down the Kemmel. Oh my word, this is quite the follow-up act. We will be catching on board with some of the GT4 fights going on at the moment. We're just quickly taking a look around. The number 26 and number 111 very close to one another at this time. We'll check to see if that is for position. As a matter of fact, let's just open up our displays here and get a gander at what you are seeing before your very eyes. Separated by less than what it shows there on the display, definitely less than 9/10 of a second, is the fight for the race lead. Mirosmel Rashidov 3rd, Toby Cyril 4th, Kieran Rod in 5th, Ben Cheeseman 6th, Tyler Vermack 7th, and Kyle Jenkins in 8th. Then into GT4, David Silf leads now ahead of Hayden Prodger. So sadly, that has gone the way of the Mercedes. Prodger is dropping behind, and quite by some way. As a matter of fact, there is Hayden Prodger right in front of our fight for first. What were the leading pack of GT4 are now met by the leading pack of GT3s. Oh my goodness, how close do we want to make it through turn 16? That is nail-bitingly close, and here comes a Killinkoglu to be side by side on our way out through Blanchemont. Now as we head towards turn 19 and 20, this is sensational stuff. Out through turn 18, there we go, on the run towards the bus stop chicane. Sylph's in the way. Van Velten says, let me through, I have a job to do. Out through turn 19, he runs it deep. It's contact with the leading GT4. What on earth has gone on there for Cas Van Velten? It's all come apart at the seams. And okay, Killinkoglu leads this race. I do not believe that. What on earth happened? Slam the brakes. He's not happy at all. I have no idea what on earth just went on there inside the mind of Cas Van Velten. Was that perhaps an emergency pit stop or absolute head loss? But the bottom line is that Ilkay Killinkoglu leads this race by 4.5 seconds to Mirosmel Rashidov. You can see they're now side by side with the race leader of GT4, David Silf. That is mind-boggling stuff there. Cassie just reporting in. Cas Van Velten, no fuel available. So it was an emergency stop for the Mustang. A very reluctant end. But what a show that had proven to be. It seems at the bottom line here, it looks to be a win on the charts for a Killinkoglu. But let's not hold our breath here. Stranger things have happened in such short amounts of time as this. You can see Ben Cheeseman absolutely launching it through turn 16 there on Roman Stanov. There's our race leader, David Silf, and that chicanery that went on in the fight between the top two is reeling Prodger back in. Now that gap was at 2.1 seconds to when we last observed it, with 2.5 minutes left to go. There could be a last lap final blow between these two. I, for one, thoroughly await to see where that goes. 2 minutes, 20 seconds left to go. We'll be on towards our final laps of racing today in what has been an unmistakable performance by all involved. Having a gander around the field here, Wesley Kuiper looks to be picking up a top 5 amidst his not stop-go penalty, his drive-through penalty. Right now, it was the story for the longest time of the leading GT4s, and then two worlds collide with the GT3s. Having a look around the field then, we stay on board for just a moment's time here with a Killinkoglu to start the final lap of the race. We'll be on board with him when he gets to the line as we look to have a better understanding soon, as now our two GT4 contenders make their way onto the field for their final flourish here. Who will come out on top? The gap though at 2 seconds between KTM and Mercedes. Silf leading the charge down towards turn 1. We'll catch up with them later on, looking around the field to see if any fights are here. Whereabouts are they? Sadly, doesn't appear to be the case. Having a look around, and really I can't say for certain if there are any fights as close as the ones we've seen in times gone by. Proger 1.7, make it 1.8 seconds there from Sylph, throwing absolutely everything at the wall here to try and catch back up to the Mercedes. You can see it is slightly working. He's 1.6 seconds, but as we enter the Kemmel straight, is he going to have the straight line speed necessary to keep bookings with the Merc, especially given the fact that in its prime area of that middle sector, the KTM doesn't seem to be clawing back anywhere near as much time as it was at the midway mark of the race. Watching in with Hayden Proger, 1.2 seconds is the gap. He may have aero damage as well from some of the stuff that went on there. You can see along the left-hand side, but that only looks cosmetic from the look of it here. 1.6 seconds the gap. The race is over. We are on towards the checkered flag in a moment's time. We are on that final lap, hiding our markers for now as the final lap of the race is upon us. Lap 46 will be the end of our GT4 campaign here in round one. Let's quickly catch on board though in what looks to be an incredibly close run to the line. 1.5 seconds as a matter of fact between Ilkay Akilinkoglu and Mir Ismail Rashidov out through turn 18. Is that a sign of low fuel by Akilinkoglu? The McLaren is slowing down. What is going to be the going rates for Ilkay Akilinkoglu, taking it all the way to the checkered flag? Getting down to turn 20, it's looking incredibly close, but who comes out on top? To the line, it's incredibly close between the pair of them, but Ilkay Akilinkoglu, by barely anything in it, takes the race win in GT3. Now, getting a gander at what's going on, back the order here, David Sylph has fought tooth and nail for this drive today, and with AMG, takes the win in GT4. Fantastic stuff. That was a bit of a hair raiser at the line there between the two GT3s, Rashidov and Akilinkoglu. Was that low fuel then by Akilinkoglu? It looked like it. I mean, if Van Velzen was anything to go by, that was definitely calling it close to the line there for Akilinkoglu. What a race, though, that has been, honestly. I thoroughly look forward to the rest of this season now. Having a look around, where oh where may Ilkay Akilinkoglu be? The number 35, our race winner, there he is. GT3 and overall win then for Ilkay Akilinkoglu in the opening round. The number 35, victorious in Spa, will lead the GT3 Championship heading into round 2. And for our stars in GT4, it's David Sylph who rose through the ranks to the top step. A silent march to victory for the 443. Honourable mentions there to Jake Garrett, a very quiet sneak into the top 3. He's played his cards very, very nicely and has come out with a very, very solid result in GT4 on the podium alongside another Mercedes, that being the race winner, David Sylph. Honourable mentions as well to Hayden Proger, who has come out both arms swinging for today's race. He was very, very close to a race win. I don't think this is over between these two. This could be a rivalry as old as time here in the solo multi-class endurance. It is lovely to see the first chapters kick off. Let's see where it picks up on June 21st for round 2 of the championship. To give you a look then at what the rest of the season's going to look like, we'll be next going to Mount Panorama in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia for the second round of the championship, then to Imola, then Misano and Zolder for the opening half. And then Zandvoort, Nürburgring, Suzuka, Hungaroring and Indianapolis. The dates are available via the NLRL Discord. What a race that has been today. Very, very well done to Ilkay Akilinkoglu and David Sylph, your two division two division winners. A bit too early to call that. And a very, very good job today by Mir Ismail Rashidov and Toby Cyril for podiums in GT3, and for Hayden Proger and Jake Garrett for podiums in GT4. For driver of the day, it's a tough one to pick, really. You're spoilt for choice in both instances. If I had to pick a driver out of the fray there, Mir Ismail Rashidov definitely got his hands full in GT3, and so too did Toby Cyril on his revenge drive to come back to a top 3 finish. It would be tough to call it between those two, but I'd say it's joint between the number 7 and the number 21. In terms of GT4, well, really, I think you'd have to give it to Sylph and Prodger. That was nail-bitingly close stuff, all the way to the checkered flag. Well, I am very, very relieved that OBS worked this time around. You have no idea how much I've been panicking about that this afternoon, because we had crashes within 2 hours of event start, and I could not be more stressed for something like that. Well, what a race that has been. Very well done to Achille Koglu and Sylph, our two division winners today in GT3 and GT4. Of course, very well done to the podium sitters for both categories and our drivers of the day. And well done to everyone who showed up to compete in today's event. Only one DNF by the looks of it there from Claudio Cisterna since the race went underway. He DNF'd with 29 laps to go. We did lose a few drivers over the course of the proceedings into today's race, but really, for what has been an opening of a very ambitious project by NLRL, I am pleasantly surprised. Very well done to our drivers today. That's all from us on TRTN, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. What a race today. Take care.